This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing. There's not many tracks in the world that is quite like Daytona International Speedway. Yes, it may no longer be the first big endurance race in the world at the start of the calendar year, but it's still one of the best that we see all year long. And this year, BMW are back with their BMW 120 series, giving drivers and teams the opportunities to compete both for cash prizes, but also the chance to go to the end-of-year event in Munich to take part in a BMW LAN event. And well, as I say, there's no better place really to start endurance racing than Daytona. So welcome to the World Center of Racing. Welcome to Daytona International Speedway, and welcome to the BMW 120. Hello to everyone watching on the iRacing eSports network, as well as BMW social media channels. You can use the hashtag BMW Sim or hashtag BMW 120 to keep up to date with us. Let us know your thoughts about this event, and if you're a team participating in one of the many splits this evening, we want to know how your race is going as well. Here's a look at the track then at Daytona. It's just a little over 5.5 kilometers in length. That's about 3.5 miles, and you notice that they use almost all of the famous 31 degrees of banking here at Daytona. It's a tough braking zone down in towards turn number 1. As you go braking from the banking onto the flat, you work yourself through a couple of horseshoes, and then it's back onto the banking down through NASCAR turns 2 before you've got that tricky, ever so tricky bus stop chicane and the run through NASCAR turns 3 and 4 to round out the lap. Humidity today, it's 68 degrees. 68% humidity, with wind speeds at about 4 miles an hour right now. It's partially cloudy with the air temperature at 20 degrees Celsius and the track temperature at 28 degrees Celsius. Will Vincent here along with Tyler Maxson, and let's have a look at what drivers are racing for this season. We got ourselves 6 races. Of course, today we start at Daytona, and then we go to Sebring in March, to Nürburgring in May, to Barcelona in July, Road Atlanta in September, and Interlagos to round out our 6 race schedule in November. And each driver will receive $1,200 if they win any of these 6 events. 2 drivers per team. They'll also get entry, as I said earlier, to the end-of-year sim event in Munich, Germany. But second and third place, they'll still get some prizes as well. Second place, $600 per driver, $300 per driver for third place. And it's worth noting as well, if a team wins 2 rounds, then it'll be second place. In the second race, for example, he will get that invitation down to Munich. Tyler, that's a lot to take in as we welcome you into the RaceWhat TV booth.
Yeah, that is a lot to take in here, and we have a lot of teams, like you said, here competing. We had over 597 signups, and the best of them made it into top split today. We have 2 BMW Works drivers racing with us. It's going to be an exciting race here for 2 hours.
Yes, indeed. We've also, of course, this is the 3rd BMW 120 event. It is worth noting that. The first one was won by Williams eSports. That was at Circuit de la Sarthe back last June. And the second BMW 120 was won by Pure Racing Team. Well, it's interesting to note that Pure Racing Team have changed. They've changed a lot over the last couple of weeks. I'm actually surprised to see a Pure Racing Team car in the field, because they say that they were shutting their doors. But Team Redline have taken on Max Benecke, and he was a part of that PRT Red success back at Road Atlanta a couple of months ago. So right on board of him actually right now as he works himself onto that banking. NASCAR turned 2. And the keys to this race, Tyler, it's going to be pretty simple. Fuel conservation and staying on the draft for the first stint. Get yourself as much of a fuel safe buffer in that first run to then give yourself a shorter pit pit stop when you come into the second run, and then it's all about flat out.
That's pretty much it exactly. I think that the drivers, it's going to be almost a game of chicken to see who's going to actually want to lead this race in the first stint, because in my opinion, I think we're going to see a lot of drivers kind of shuffle around a little bit to try and work that draft, like you said, and save a lot of fuel so that they can take a nice short stint, or a shorter stint, I should say, in the second half of this race to hopefully net them a race win.
Yeah, and it's one of those tracks here that you can overtake at. There's a lot of overtaking opportunities. We turn our attention to look at the number 81 VRS Koanda Sim Sports car, currently being piloted by Joshua Rogers. And it's one of those tracks I say you can overtake here. Turn number 1, we will see quite a lot of big moves going on as we just turn our attention over to Apex Racing Team and Kevin Ellis Jr. But then, of course, you got that run out of turn number 6, Tyler, that then sets you up for the bus stop chicane. And I think that will be one of those key overtaking opportunities, but a lot of drivers will be thinking very early on, just where do they need to be coming out of the bus stop chicane to be side by side when they get to the start finish line, because I do think there will be a photo finish here today.
I would actually be surprised if there wasn't a photo finish here today. It's just one of the things that Daytona creates whenever you've got the long banking here like Daytona has. Drivers are on top speed for a long time in these BMWs, so that's just going to allow the draft to really be worked, and for the teams, especially towards the end of the race, to maybe work it to their advantage. And like you said, they're going to have to figure out that bus stop and figure out how they need to place the car in the first half of the race to hopefully net them a win if they do have to do a side-by-side drag race.
There's Sebastian Job in the Red Bull Racing eSports number 2 car. Had a very successful 2019, comes into the new decade with a lot of momentum. It's so great to see so many of the big teams here. You've got Team Redline, you've got Koanda Sim Sports, you've got Logitech G Autos Esports, Williams Esports here, Red Bull Racing Esports are in the mix as well. Radicals Online, great to see them here in the mix, as well as Apex Racing Team, Evolution Racing Team, and so many others. It is, quite simply put, a stacked field here today.
Certainly is, and with just about a few more minutes, about 5 more minutes now left in practice, these drivers don't have a whole lot more time to prep their cars and get ready before the 8-minute or 2-lap qualifying session. And me and you were talking before the broadcast, Will, if these guys don't get their first lap right, or they have to abort it for some reason, they need to do it early on in the lap, because they're not going to make it back around to the start-finish line again. Yeah,
it's going to be very tight and very close. And again, there's a couple of places on the racetrack where you need to make that decision early. Turn number 1 will be that first one. I will expect to see a lot of drivers aborting runs very early. I did want to very quickly just highlight this. This is 33rd place. That is Race for Cat Motorsports. And look at that. Only 0.6 of a second behind your current leaders. So that is how stacked the field is here today in this top split. And as we said at the top of the broadcast, we wish the very best of luck to anyone participating in their own BMW 120 today. The rules are quite simple. Get yourself, get a friend, go racing for 2 hours here around Daytona International Speedway. And one of the things I do like about this is that I've seen already on the community, drivers just looking for a partner, finding a partner, they'll go out and race. And so often, Tyler, in the next couple of weeks, remembering of course that we've got the first 24-hour sim race of the decade next week at Daytona. This is one of the things I really like about this track. It's the start of new friendships and new relationships, especially as you go slightly deeper for your fields.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's basically the start of everyone's year, but it's also the start of everyone's sim racing endurance for the year, like you said. I mean, it's such a big event. I mean, for the 24 hours, we'll probably see, I'm guessing, upwards of 1,000+ drivers registered for that, and so many teams taking part in it. It's just so cool to see how the sim racing community can really come together for events at this track, and like you said, can form some amazing little friendships and possibly even could create some teams in the coming months.
Yeah, as we just turn ourselves down the order a little bit, there's running Sim Sports, number 12 team, running in 13th place right now. We saw them a couple of weeks ago as part of one of the many endurance series that we broadcast here on RaceWhat TV and on the iRacing eSports network. We've got 90 seconds left of this 30-minute practice session before we head ourselves down to qualifying, and to say the field is really close right now. It's 3.1 seconds in total separating the 49 drivers a set a lap time, but the 1 second bracket, that's 21 drivers right now, so it is pretty close out there as drivers are now starting to do themselves some simulated qualifying laps before they head themselves over to qualifying, which will take place, we say, in just a couple of moments time. And well, one thing actually I noticed and I realized just a couple of hours ago, Tyler, the 24 hours of Dubai of course got rained out about halfway through, so that will mean that our Daytona broadcast in a week's time, I'm going to say it will be the first 24-hour fully broadcasted, fully raced event of the decade in motorsports.
I believe you are correct. I haven't seen anything else come up, at least on my social feeds or anything like that, about that. So, yeah, that really certainly could be the first 24-hour broadcasted race of the decade. That's pretty cool to see that it's going to be on the iRacing, on the iRacing eSports network in just a week's time. And most of these teams you see here today will be racing in that. So, I think the racing today is almost going to be a sneak peek, we could say, of what we will see in a week.
Yeah, it will be, and of course the BMW GTE will be represented in the 24 hours of Daytona in a week's time, which will be exclusively live on the iRacing eSports network. We'll be broadcasting all 24 hours of that. So it's time to start thinking, shall we, about qualifying, as the drivers, as we've noticed, they have themselves 8 minutes, and their job, well, basically go as fast as they can. They cannot go off track. To those of you who are new to iRacing, hello, welcome to iRacing, the world's most realistic online racing simulator. The drivers, they cannot get themselves an incident point, and that of course means going off track. And the key parts of that are down at the start of the lap, you can easily push wide down into the international horseshoe, but more importantly, just cutting a little bit too much of that bus stop chicane, that could be the difference between you getting a very fast lap in or having to go again.
Certainly could be, and we know drivers really like to push the limits through the bus stop. We all the time see drivers picking up that 1X or picking up the slowdown penalty through there if they cut it a little bit later on. So it can be a very tricky situation, you know, when you're doing a qualifying run like this. Obviously the drivers will be going flat out, but on your first lap, is it almost worth just taking the bus stop a little bit safer, get in a lap time, and then kind of go for more of a push lap on the second one just after you know you've got a secure lap in?
Yes, but at the same time, I do worry about the tyres on the second lap. Now, this isn't a track that is particularly hard on tyres. It certainly isn't a Circuit de la Sarthe. It certainly isn't a track like, for example, the Nürburgring. But at the same time, they've got to make sure they've got enough in terms of tyre life to do the extra run. You see already a couple of teams that they're doing very similar to what you'd see in NASCAR qualifying here at Daytona, running it all the way up against the wall as they now come down into the bus stop chicane. It's close course qualifying, so no draft will come into play here either.
There will be no draft that can come into it, but in the race, that will probably be the biggest talking point, I think, all the way through it, and the biggest thing that the drivers can play with in the race. But in qualifying, it's all down to them. They can't be influenced anyway as far as the lap time goes in the draft, so it's all about the driver that they put in for qualifying and how fast they can run.
Yeah, indeed. So let's listen on board then with Kevin Ellis Jr. for a quick moment. first part of the lap then in the books for Kevin Ellis Jr. We will see those lap times come in very quickly in a couple of moments' time as Ellis Jr. takes his Apex Racing Team number 99 car now on to the banking through turn number 6. And now he comes on to that banking through NASCAR turn number 2 here. Not a bad start to the lap there, Tyler.
No, certainly not a bad start to the lap either, and as the first few lap times are getting set, it's currently Team Redline on the pole, but with only 3 teams having set lap times, I expect a lot more to come in, and right now, there you go, Williams eSports takes over the top spot, only 2 1,000ths quicker than that Team Redline car, so that just shows you how close this qualifying session is. And with everyone starting to set some laps, we will see we'll get a bit more understanding, I think, of where teams are actually sorted out.
Yeah, they are. Then coming past start finish line, we started, so we might as well finish then with this Apex Racing Team. 1 minute 40.152 for them as they come past start finish line. Let's have a look at Joshua Rogers. He's gone to the top of the timing sheets right now in that number 81 VRS Commander SimSports car, and he's on to his second lap. Most teams are doing that second lap. The number 9 Williams eSports BenQ car, however, is not, Tyler.
No, they are not. And they're, yeah, like you said, they're back in the pit lane, and Team Redline are going for another lap. Williams eSports Chill Blast as well. They're not going for another one. So it seems the 2 Williams eSports cars will not be going for a second lap. And from what I can see here, I'm just cycling through, everyone else is going to be going for a second one.
Yeah, they are. So Joshua Rogers then on to the banking as he pulls off there. So he's not going to complete his second lap. He probably saw the delta down into turn number 6 and realized that he wasn't going to go any faster. Now, that for him will be qualifying done and in the books. Team Redline have brought their car in towards pit road, so we did allude to this, Tyler, the fact that the tyres will give up a little bit and your top 5 teams are not able to go any faster on their second lap. So go on board with the Williams eSports Razor car. He is going to go and finish off the laps there. Will Moritz Leutner as he does a 140.518. He was P16, remains in P16.
The only driver that's been able to get within the 0.2 of a second bracket to that VRS Coanda SimSport number 81 is Logitech G Altus eSports. They're going to jump themselves up in towards P2. And as Kevin Ellis Jr. comes across for his second lap, he won't do any better. Currently on board with AAA eSports White as they round the chicane and through NASCAR 2, 3, and 4. And we'll see what they do this time by. But if it follows the same structure as everyone else, they won't go quicker on this second lap.
There's Alexander Walters coming past the start-finish line. 140. Well, this ain't going to be any faster. Let's be honest about that. As we cut away from him, as he got the Radicals Online car, Pablo GoPro Lopez does a time. It's 2 minutes 9, and he's not actually done a lap. This is the Radicals Online team that have had so much luck over it. They're not even going to get a lap in. They're going to start from the rear of this field, Tyler.
Yeah, it will be Radicals Online from the rear. Team Redline 2, as they will jump up into P3. So they didn't have a lap in then until the final dire moments. But like you said, Radicals Online, they're going to be at the back. They will be one of 4 cars right now who hasn't set a lap time. And I believe the 4 that haven't will stay the 4 that haven't. And the grid looks pretty much set here for the first BMW 120 of the year.
Yeah, indeed. So the time will tick down. So with lone car qualifying, you will not be able to complete your lap. So it's different. For open course qualifying, as soon as you pass start finish line, you can complete that lap. The same does not apply to closed car qualifying. So unfortunately for Pablo Lopez and the Radicals Online team, they will not set a qualifying lap time. The AAA eSports Black car, Hezza Sicilia, won't set a lap time. Racecraft eSports will not set a lap time. Rebellion iRacing team, the same applied to them. And Macau Lamoureux. Just a quick point. The driver who qualified must be the driver who now takes the grid for the start of the race. Qualifying is over. And with that, we can head ourselves down to the starting grid for the BMW 120 at Daytona. And it is Koanda Sim Sports who have themselves top step. They were so successful in 2019. They start off a new decade just as strong. 139.714, almost 0.2 of a second faster than Logitech G, Altus eSports, and Andrew Carl. Team Redline GT2, Gianni Vecchio, rounds off on the inside of row number 2. Williams eSports Chill Blast in 4th place. Then we head ourselves back. Team Redline, the primary car. Max Beneke in 5th place. Williams Esports BenQ in 6th. RS Competition in 7th. Apex Racing Team in 8th. 9th place. Red Bull Racing Esports and Racecraft Esports Lockburton. Hands out your top 10. Full Send Racing 11th place with Pure Racing Team in 12th. Running Sim Sports in 13th. Bronze 56K in 14th, and Astro Gaming Altus Esports rounds out your top 15. There's a lot of drivers that are coming through on your grid. You're going to cycle through the rest of them. Give me a key to this race, Tyler, as we run through the grid.
Tire management, fuel management, and overall just the strategy of the race. That is what is going to win you this race today. Pure speed may not be the only answer to getting this one, is because it's just going to be so difficult for these drivers who aren't very good with fuel saving and aren't very good with tire management to get through this race still in the lead by the end of it, because that is really what it's going to come down to. How well you can manage the fuel and the tires, as well as managing the draft all at the same time.
In case you haven't noticed, it will be 120 minutes worth of racing here at Daytona. Of course, that is 2 hours. It'll be 1 pit stop to the end in this race as the drivers now start to pull off behind the iRacing first safety car. We get ourselves a wonderful look then as they work themselves through the bus stop chicane. In 1 week's time, we'll be talking about this as a start for the 24 hours of Daytona here on the iRacing Esports Network, and the BMW M8 GTE will be one of those cars competing. But today, it is all about BMW. This is the first BMW 120 event of the year. Cash and the chance to go to Munich to take part in BMW's end-of-year sim racing event. They are on the line. The pace car is going to dance itself on towards pit road. Joshua Rogers on the inside of row number 1 with Andrew Carl alongside him. 2 drivers, 120 minutes. Let's find out who's going to be your first major winner of 2020. Joshua Rogers getting in towards a restart zone. He's waiting. Now he picks up the pace. Green flag in the air. We are racing for 2 hours here at Daytona.
Look at that start there for the second of the red line cars. They're all going to funnel down into this very tricky turn 1, and I think Logitech G Altus Esports are going to get spun around front of the field. They're going to slide off, and Red Bull Racing Esports in it as well. Wow,
so a lot there happening on the first lap of this race. We'll get ourselves another look at that one in just a moment's time, but Logitech G Altus Esports from the front of the field, they are going to go to the rear, and there is a look. We can just see them at the back of your shot, but what a disastrous start there for Andrew Carl. Now you see more cars coming in hot. Let's go and try and have a look on board if we can with Andrew Carl. There he is, second place, coming into the corner. He loses the position, and then the back end comes around. I'm not sure if he gets hit or not there, but I do see a Red Bull Racing Esports car in the mix as well. One more look, if we can, very quickly in towards turn number 1. This should give us a pretty good angle. And yeah, they made contact, it looks like, with the number 1 car there. That is the Williams Esports Chill Blast car of Lauren Heinrich at the start of the race.
So a big incident early on, and that takes out 2 of your big competitors in this race. I mean, we're talking about the second place running car, or was second place running. They're currently running down in near dead last. And then the second car that was involved was that Red Bull Racing eSports car, another big-time competitor for the win of this event. But as we jump back forward, it's still Josh Rogers leading, and Yanni Vecchio is going to come through for second.
Yes, and now it's Koana Sim Sports, Team Redline second, Team Redline third. The Williams eSports Chill Blast car that was involved in that incident down at turn number 1. They run in 4th place, and then 5th place is the Apex Racing team, currently being piloted by Kevin Ellis Jr. The bronze 56K car, they keep on flashing on their timing screen. They're going side by side with the BMW Works team right now. The number 25 car is the BMW Team CATENG, which has got Phillipp behind the wheel. And of course, Phillipp will be running in the Rolex 24 in a couple of weeks' time in the number 25 BMW Team RLL car, along with Connor De Filippi, Bruno Spengler, Colton Herta as well. And I mean, Colton Herta, one of the big stars, the big names in IndyCar recently. It's going to be great to see him in the Rolex. But the number 25 car is actually right behind Keika Shiba right now as they work onto the banking NASCAR Turn 2.
This is where the draft becomes evident. You can just see as we ride on board with the BMW Team CATENG car. They're going to go inside here on Williams eSports BenQ, and they're going to take over the position before we even reach the bus stop chicane. Now they set their sights on the Full Send Racing number 79 as they're going to get sideways, and that's going to push the 25 car back. They're going to lose 4 or 5 spots in the process, and that was definitely not what was on the plans for that team.
No, let's get ourselves another look, shall we, on board with Phillipp coming into the bus stop. And get us the first part right. And then, he has to check up, center of the corner there for the second part to avoid running over a car ahead of him. That just gets him a little bit squirrely as he then comes back onto the banking. And he's right, he loses 1, 2, 3 places as a consequence of that. So now down at the rear part of your top 15 as they come down towards the end of the lap again. But meanwhile, out front, it's a little bit like a Yarno trolley train for your top 6, top 7 drivers. You've got yourself Josh Rogers leading the way and 6 drivers in that lead pack right now. I say lead pack, Tyler. They do want to try and pull away if they possibly can. You'll notice at this front part of the field, they are not going to really want to fight too hard too early on until they've got themselves a good gap.
No, they certainly won't. I mean, and just lurking there in the background is that Racecraft eSports car and the Rowan SimSport car as well. They've got a bit of a gap back to Astro Gaming Altus eSports, but like you said, that front group is just going to want to kind of pull away from each other, not do too much battling early on, and make it a 6-horse race towards the end for the race win, instead of making it maybe a 10 or 12-horse race.
Yeah, and that's always the sort of thing. We have this so often on the iRacing Esports Network, packs of drivers, and it's the racing mentality. Once you get to a certain level, sometimes you realize that it's better to just give the drivers around you the opportunity to work together. I mean, we're at Daytona time. I might as well mention it. Darryl Waltrip, he always used to say, get a dance partner. It's like high school prom.
It certainly is, and coming from the real world, I can say you use it all the time. You know, it's some of the time it's just better to sit behind someone and use their draft than it is to fight them, even if you may be a bit quicker than them. Some of the time it's just better just to sit behind them, save a bit of fuel, save a bit of tires, so that you have a better chance at overtaking them in the end.
Yeah. Oh, Max Benecke. We talked about people actually working together. Max Benecke right now was going side by side with Ryan Heinrich a moment ago. They pulled back into line. The Williams eSports Chill Blast car was looking for 3rd place, not able to do so as we go on board with the Williams eSports Chill Blast car. Although the Evolution Racing Team cars had themselves an incident by the looks of it. They're falling well down my timing screens right now. That's a number 15 car. They've just had themselves a mare of a moment. Replay is coming on up, and this will be down. This is after the International Horseshoe, so this will be down into that very technical left-hander. Did they just pop it out wide? Oh, I think they got turned there. They did get turned, and it looks like it was one of the other Williams eSports cars.
Yeah, I think that was Williams eSport Razor. who actually ended up turning them there, but I can't quite say for sure. But yeah, that was definitely an unfortunate incident for them a little bit further back, and that's going to drop them pretty much out of the running at this stage.
Yeah, you're right. So 2 Williams eSports cars at the start of this race have each had themselves incidents, or only 7 minutes into this one. Pure Racing Team versus Williams eSports banking right now as they come down in towards turn 1. We go on board with the Pure Racing Team car. Very different Pure Racing Team in 2020 compared to others as Wyatt Goodham in the Bronze 56K car. They have just had themselves an incident. I think this is down in towards turn number 1. We're going to get a replay from our overhead coverage coming down in towards that first corner. And, oh, yeah, that was just a simple case of being run into from behind there. And Wyatt Goodham brings that car back out onto track.
Yeah, there's really nothing that they could have done there in that Bronze 56 car. I mean, they just were run into in the back. And it's just a little racing incidents like those, though, that can really be race hampering for you. And right now, just looking at the lead in the front, they're all just doing exactly as we thought. All staying in the draft, not really moving too much as we look at this battle a little bit further back.
Yeah, indeed we do. We turn our attention a little bit away from it, actually, because I want to go back and, if possible, just keep our eye out on Lionheimer for the moment in that number 1 Williams eSports Shield Blast car, as works himself through NASCAR turn 3 and 4 right now. And Lloyd Heinrich just working towards the end of the lap, but it's still a 6-car breakaway. Worth noting at the rear of the field, you got yourself rear of that pack even. You got Lassie back in the number 4 car. Then Racecraft Esports Lockburton, as they come down in towards turn 1 again, is running in. Actually, no, they've just changed positions. They come down in towards turn 1 because running SimSport and Charlie Collins just makes a good move as they work down in towards turn 1. You can see as we turn our attention over to running, they had the flashing lights on there. A lot of flashing lights as they come past the start finish line. Inside line taken there by the running SimSports car, getting themselves past Brian Lockwood and the Racecraft Esports Lockburn car. That is a change for P7 on track.
You can just see the pace of that Rowan SimSport car. They have just really started to gap that Racecraft Esports car through the infield section. Now, you're definitely not going to catch up to the top 6 on your own, so that Rowan SimSport car really needs that Racecraft Esports car to just kind of work with him a little bit. Don't fight him even if he gets in the draft, and just try and work their way up to the front group, because if they continue to fight, then all it's going to do is put them further and further back towards the Astro Gaming, Williams Esports, and Pure Racing team behind.
The Ferris wheel, such a big part of the Daytona landscape when we're in Rolex season, but a wonderful look there as the cars now come onto the banking down. NASCAR turns 3 and 4 again. We've got more good racing going on. This is down in your mid-pack, actually, and this is from about Phillipp in the BMW CATENG car down to about 18th, 19th place on track. There's a possibility we might see ourselves a change position here, because the second running SimSports car looking very close to the rear of Black Spot Racing, having to go around the long way as they come past the start-finish line in towards turn number 1. They will come right about now, and they stay side by side through turn number 1. And on the exit of the corner, Ronan, unfortunately, that time not able to get past Black Spot Racing.
Well, he did have to stay back in line, and you can see the defending there from Black Spot just a little bit, just to let him know, don't stick your nose in here. And this entire group, though, is fighting pretty hard here, except for the front 2, the Team CATENG and Full Send Racing car. They're just kind of staying in line together. These two are just really going at it. They want to switch positions here. But what's happening is all they're doing is kind of losing that group ahead of them and backing right up to the Williams Esports Razor and Team Theme car just behind.
Yeah, it's just turning our attention actually back over. Actually, no, we're going to keep it with this battle, actually. Let's go on board again with Phillipp in the number 13 running Sim Sport car. And let's have a look as he gets to run. Of course, one of the difficulties, Tyler, when you are in a 4-5 car pack is that the driver ahead of you is also getting the tow, so it makes it a little bit harder to be able to pull up alongside. So also worth noting that these drivers will have 25 incident points over the course of this race, and we were talking before you went on air, that's 25 times over the bus stop chicane, and you will be disqualified from the event. And it is very easy to cut over the grass down at the bus stop chicane, a lot easier than a lot of drivers will actually think about until they actually start hitting it in anger.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's one of those things you can gain a little bit or lose a lot, especially when the incident limit is so close like it is. I mean, 25 incident points for 2 hours is not a whole lot when you think about it, because like you said, I mean, it's 25 times over the inside of that chicane, and that's not even the only place where you can get an incident. I mean, this Daytona circuit is certainly plentiful for places of where you can pick up an incident point, and if you pick too many of those up, you're actually going to end up getting yourself DQ'd from the event. So it's certainly something that these drivers have to keep in mind when they're doing a 2-hour race like this, and especially when you're the first driver starting in the car. You don't want to put the second driver in a bad position where they've got to score maybe 10 or 5 incident points in the second stint because you came out of the first stint with 15 or 20.
Yeah, you actually want it to almost be the other way around, where they can be a little bit more aggressive if they need to in the second part, because we talked about this already. A lot of these teams in the first part, what they want to be doing is just making sure they do a little bit of fuel saving. They can keep that car under control and be in position. You're not going to win the race in this first hour, but what you need to do is give yourself enough tools, save enough fuel, and get yourself into such a situation that you can then hand over, and the second driver does the winning of the race. And one thing I will say, I think it will be unlikely, this is famous last words here of course, unlikely that we're going to see any team not take tyres when they do their driver change on that first stint.
I would be very surprised if we see a team not take tires, because in my opinion, it's just for the track temperatures even that we have right now. We're sitting at about 32 degrees Celsius track temperature right now, so that's a pretty hot track that we have at the moment. So when these drivers are pushing these cars full out like they are right now, it's just going to burn these tires off more and more. And especially whenever you already have the time that is pre-mandated for the driver change, you might as well just take the extra few seconds if you need to do the tire change while you're doing the driver swap.
Yeah, and so often there is often a cut-off point, and we haven't actually shown you the weather so far during the race. So let's do that for you quickly now. The track temperature is 32 degrees Celsius. That's 89 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 20 degrees Celsius in the air right now, humidity of 67%. And I would say 32 degrees Celsius, it will be just a little bit too warm. And someone is going to prove us wrong. I absolutely guarantee it. But more importantly, it would make life a lot more difficult for the second driver, because they get into a car with partially worn tyres, and there's absolutely no way you can easily simulate that.
No, I mean, you really can. Even if you had done a practice race for this, it would still be a difficult thing to simulate, because you're not pushing like you do in a real race, even in a practice session like this. So the second driver really won't have an amazing understanding of what they're stepping into. And even the drivers who race in the 24 Hours Daytona and things like that, when they have the practice on doing the driver swaps, they usually will jump in with new tires. There's not often that you'll see teams switch drivers and not switch tires, as we see Williams eSports BenQ coming in for the first time here today, and they will stop in their box. And I'm just not quite sure what they're coming in for at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very early, only 20 minutes into the race. But you're going to have to do another pit stop anyway, because there's no way you can get the fuel to run 104 minutes. So something evidently has gone wrong with Keishibe in that car. Didn't see too much damage to it, but we'll keep an eye out on that just in case as we turn our attention back to this group at the front of your field. We go on board right now. with Kevin Ellis Jr. in the Apex Racing team car, number 99. Of course, it's about a year ago that they did that merger with Evolution Racing Team. And it seems to be, of course, we're just at the end of silly season now. 1 year ago, Tyler, we're talking about Apex Racing Team merging with Evolution Racing Team. This year, the big story out of silly season, that was basically everyone from Pure Racing Team disbanding, and a number of drivers heading over to join Team Redline, who have been at the front of sim racing for God knows how many years.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool merger to see. I mean, we had two really, really good teams coming together and really are taking a big charge into stuff this year. Obviously, them acquiring Max, they had that opportunity at the Spa race for the Spa 24 Hours last year to do the Team Redline PRT car, and I think it's something that we're going to see kind of evolve over the course of the year, as I think that is RS Competition is going to get by the Apex Racing Team and slot them down just a little bit. But back to what I was saying, though, I think that we're just going to see that team get stronger and stronger as the year goes on, and they get used to working with each other that more and more. I think that that's going to become a pretty dominant little team there. Yeah,
I completely agree. And they've done this a couple of times in the past, Team Redline. It's about 4 or 5 years ago that they poached Alexei Yakola and Oli Pakala from Glacier Racing to join their ranks. And that gave them a couple of years of renewed success. Of course, they at one point also had Graham Carroll in their ranks as well. As we go on board with Gianni Vecchio, Enzo Benito, of course, was part of that team back in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. But it's going to add another dimension. And, of course, we saw they worked so well at Spa about 6 months ago. And I could probably assume that was probably the start of the major negotiations between the two groups, because we saw Max Benecke and Max Venig working with Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in the 24 Hours of Spa. The race that infamously now had Max Verstappen have a brake failure on his sim rig. And who says that sim racing is nothing like real racing when you have Max Verstappen have moments like that? As you're just checking with RS Competition, who are running 5th place, and Lassie Back in the number 4 car coming past the stripe. And actually, Lassie Back has the fastest lap time of the day in terms of the race, is a 1:40.567.
Definitely a team to keep an eye out on. They're currently sitting down in 5th. They got by Apex Racing Team in turn 1 just a lap ago. And right now they're trying to close back up to the rear end of that Team Redline GT car. But it's definitely someone to maybe keep an eye on, because like you said, they have the fastest lap of the race, and that doesn't always say everything, is how quickly you are. As we jump back a little bit further back and we watch this battle here between the pretty large group.
Yeah, as we've got Optimal Sim Racing Red and Full Send Racing number 85. They're side by side as they head themselves through the International Horseshoe. This is down the rear part of your field. These drivers who are now about half a minute behind your leading group, but it's very close racing between Maniti Racing Blue in the number 78 car, Full Send Racing in the number 85, Optimal Sim Racing in the number 22, and Rebellion iRacing Team in the number 992. You've got to remember, of course, that this driver, Michael Lamoureux, he started this race at the rear of the field and has worked himself up a total of, 2 places already. And the other team that started towards the rear of the field, by the virtue of not setting a qualifying time, Radicals Online, well, they're up into 22nd place right now, Tyler.
Yeah, really good start for both of those teams. Obviously, they were able to keep themselves out of the melee that was turn number 1. And they are both up a lot of positions here today. Radicals Online a bit more in no man's land at the moment. They're just about 3 seconds off the back of Apex Racing Team number 63, and just about the same gap ahead of Logitech G Altus eSports.
Yeah, there's Pablo Lopez in a 122 car as he'll come down in towards the first corner once again. And the gap between himself and his next victim, so to say, is pretty substantial. It's 2.5 seconds to the Apex Racing Team number 63 car, and the lap times between them, we can show that to you now. He's gaining, but only a couple of tenths of a second at most per lap, so it'll take a while for GoPro Lopez to get up to the rear of George Simmons. It's great to see Pablo Lopez back behind the wheel on a RaceWhat TV broadcast. He's taken a period of absences from sim racing, and Daytona is one of those tracks that we so often see people make returns to sim racing, Tyler.
I think it's one of those tracks that just really lures in so many different drivers. A lot of drivers have a lot of fond memories at this racetrack, and I think that really encourages a lot of them to make returns when they may not otherwise would have to the sim racing community and to the Daytona circuit. It's one of those really, really special circuits, and it's a great way to start off a championship like this. I mean, there is a lot on the line here for these teams competing today, and it's a wonderful setting to do it in.
It is, as Los Cangres in number 17 position. Race for Cat looking to go alongside them, maybe, as they battle it out for 17th place on track. And actually, yep, Race for Cat's been able to get the pass done, and actually immediately has got Phoenix Racing eSports just ahead of them. Battle going on now for what will be 16th place on track, as Race for Cat Motorsports and Julia Perez Alba able to make up one position past the start-finish line there. I'm just keeping an eye out on my timing screens. I do notice that Rebellion iRacing Team White, the team we talked about starting at the rear of the field, working their way through. They have got a lot of traffic ahead of them. Michael Lamoureux, the number 992 car. Is a BMW allowed to have a 992 car on it, Tyler? I'm not sure they should be.
No, I'm not quite sure that BMW would themselves be too fond about that. But nonetheless, they are on an absolute charge forward. Same with Radicals Online. And the other team that is making a charge forward as well is that Logitech G Altus eSports car. After getting turned around in turn number 1, after starting second place, they are back up to 23rd. And keep in mind, they were all the way down and near last after the first turn.
They were, and they've up 22 places. Of course, part of that is due to attrition. We've had a couple of teams have incident at the start of this race. It's worth noting, Rebel Racing Esports and Sebastian Drobe, they're one of the teams that I was going to really keep an eye out on in this race, but they were out very, very early on. Dead Zone Endurance Racing out of the event. Prolog React Esports out. AAA Esports and Rich Energy, powered by something, we've got Mankini. Of course, that was one of the funnier team names of 2019, the Rich Energy car, which of course other energy drinks allegedly are available. Full Send Racing right behind Renin Simsport. This is about going on for 12th, 13th, 14th place on track. It's worth noting actually that BMW Team CATENG, they have started to pull out a little bit here. So they've got themselves 2.5 seconds now to that group behind him. So Phillipp doing a good job. Of course, he's already had some practice around the World Centre of Racing in preparation for the 24 Hours of Daytona in a fortnight's time, but he's putting that to good use.
Yeah, he certainly is here, and he is closing up to the back of that Pure Racing Team number 3 car. And like you said, Phillipp, he's definitely got some time at this racetrack, and he'll be competing next weekend as well. So it's going to be a very cool thing to see, I think. For a lot of these sim racing teams, they are competing against a real BMW driver in one of these BMW events, and they have had a team in every single one that we've had previous to this one. And it's just something cool, I think, for the entire sim racing community to see these professional drivers coming in and running alongside them.
Yeah, in fact, let's give you a little bit of RaceWhat TV fan immersion, shall we? Let's do a lap on board with the BMW CATENG cars. It looks down to the inside over Pure Racing Team. Battle going on, moving them into the top 10. Let's give you some RaceWhat TV fan immersion with BMW CATENG and Phillipp. good thing about these BMWs is that we got to see the Pure Racing Team car, Sebastian Schlumbach, right behind us. Just to let you know, by the way, Apex Racing Team and RS Competition, they've just been battling it out for what is 5th place on track. And as well, this is a very close battle going on. 4 drivers on the same piece of real estate. Apex Racing Team and Team Redline almost side by side there. Down in towards the left-hand kink. And you made a good point a moment ago, Tyler. All that effort, all that work, trying to have the top 6 breakaway, it's not worked, because now it's up to 9 drivers. In fact, it's not going to be long, potentially, until it's up to 11 drivers if they carry on at this rate.
You're certainly right. It's only getting bigger as this race goes on. Now it's Phillipp Eng looking to move up in towards that top battle. He's got quite a bit of a gap to close up to do so, but currently the top 9 are separated by just about 2 seconds at this point, so it's very, very close all the way through your field right now. But Williams eSports moves themselves up into 3rd, and will push Team Redline down in towards 4th place, and then Apex Racing Team will round out your top 5. So a lot of movement has gone on here in this little bit of time.
Yeah, indeed so. By the way, live timing and scoring is available. Better move back, racesport.tv/timing. racesport.tv/timing. Live timing and scoring is up. Apologies that we didn't get it going at the drop of the green flag. Had a couple of technical issues there, but it is now working as a change for 2nd place. Williams Esports Chill Blast now up into that 2nd place. And of course, this was a team at the start of this race that had themselves a little bit of a moment on the outside of turn number 1 with your 2nd place driver at the time. In fact, he was down in 3rd place, but the driver who started on the outside of row number 1, that was the Astro Gaming LTC Esports car, as behind the 2 Team Redline drivers are now swapping it out as RS Competition. They've just lost it. That's down at turn number 5. Lassie Back was having a great run in the number 4 car, but it's all come to naught for the moment. Let's have a look up above. Oh, and he's going to go onto the grass, and as soon as you do that, well, I think he's scattered enough cones there to get himself a strike.
Yeah, he certainly had a pretty big incident there, but he was able to continue, didn't make contact with any other cars other than that Apex Racing Team car, but that's one of the things that's so difficult about going side by side through there. You're almost guaranteed that the driver on the outside is going to get pushed off the road, and that is exactly what happened this time for Lassie Back and that RS Competition.
Yep, down into 9th place, but interestingly, and more importantly, what that's done is it's dropped them 4 seconds behind Astro Gaming LTC Esports, but it's allowed BMW Team CATENG to get themselves up a draft. And now Phillipp Eng is right behind RS Competition, and he's going to be able to be pulled around the racetrack for the next couple of laps. That will help BMW Team CATENG and also Pure Racing Team to start closing up to that front pack.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to do. I mean, that now became from a 2-car train up to a 3-car. And we know Lassie Back definitely has some pace because he was up with that front train and battling well within it. So that could be the ticket for that team, for those group of 2 just behind, to move themselves up into the top 8, and that's exactly what they need. But Phillipp Eng is going to go side by side here with the Lassie Back out of the hairpin and onto the front straight, but he's not going to be able to get it done though. And Lassie Back is going to slam the door on him.
Yeah, indeed so, as we're now looking back onto the banking, and this is Phillipp Eng. We're on board with him. Lassie Back, as we said, has the fastest lap of the day, 140.567. Of course, that was done probably with a little bit of a tourist. Phillipp Eng has to try to sort of bore going to the outside as Lassie Back squeezes them out a little bit there as they come down into the bus stop chicane. And this is one of the cool things as well. As a sim racer, you get the chance to ride wheel to wheel with some huge drivers like BMW Works drivers. The thing is, Tyler, these sim racers, they won't give an inch because they've got something to prove.
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, these guys are really not going to give these pro drivers anything. I mean, they are going to make them work for absolutely everything on the racetrack. But one of the things that I do really think could be a big talking point as we go 3 wide here, just a little bit further back. It's a bit difficult to see exactly what that is. There's a full scent sandwich car in the middle, and there's contact with the number 08.
Yep, that is the Race for Cat Motorsports car, and every time you go 3 wide at Daytona, you have to hold your breath. And Race for Cat Motorsports, thankfully, they didn't hit a tyre barrier or anything. They just did a little bit of bouncing around other drivers. They were on the outside coming into turn number 1, and actually, I would put that one on Race for Cat. They just pinched a little bit too much coming in towards that first corner. Maybe they thought they were 2 wide rather than 3 wide in towards turn number 1. But Race for Cat Motorsports, as a consequence, well, they've lost themselves a couple of places. Here's a look on board of them and Julia Perez Albert. I think they were just too far towards the middle of the racetrack at that point.
Yeah, it looks to me as if they just thought that they were 2 wide instead of 3 wide, like you had said, because they kind of closed the door after seeing the car on the inside actually get ahead of them, that they just kind of started to turn it a little bit sharper than they had before. So that's what it looked like to me. I'm not exactly sure, though, but yeah, like you said, it could have just been one of those things where it's a very unfortunate incident. Luckily, though, the Race for Cat team was able to continue on.
I'd get into a world of trouble if I didn't show the number 95 car at least a couple of times in this broadcast. As here is Nicky team, of course. He runs for another team normally, another manufacturer when it comes to endurance racing, but you see him here in the BMW 120 coming towards the start-finish line, past the start-finish line, in towards turn number 1. Do you think maybe he's secretly looking for a BMW driver at this point, Tyler?
He certainly could be. I mean, nothing is impossible, but yeah, he's running the BMW event here today, and it's another pro driver in the field. It's so cool to see these guys really coming out in force, and there is right now 3 of them in the field from what I know of. So it's really, really cool to see all these guys really battling it out with these sim drivers. And again, really, these guys that normally do the online stuff are not giving these guys an inch of room.
I've just checked a certain reliable encyclopedia, and Nicky's never actually taken part in a race event, a real racing event, with BMW. So there's your fun fact of the day. Going Heinrich right behind Joshua Rogers, Rio Escobar and Sim Sports. Josh Rogers has led the entire way so far today. However, Williams eSports Shield Blast, they have been a team who've been happy. Well, they haven't actually been happy to sit behind. Now they're in second. They might feel a little bit more content sitting behind and working that fuel number. American racing, so often you hear that phrase, the fuel number, running to a number. And quite often, it's one of those things that if you come from shorter racing, the 30, 45-minute races where you don't have to do pit stops, sometimes having to remember that fuel saving is as much about endurance racing as traffic management, as, you know, being able to set fast lap times, as about the pit stops and anything else. Once you understand the fact that you sometimes need to preserve your fuel and your tyres, that's how you get from being into the top 10% into the top 2%, Tyler.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's one of, if not the biggest part of endurance racing, is understanding when to push and when to save, because some of the time it's just better to save a bit of fuel behind someone than to go out and take the lead. But back to your point, though, about VRS and SimSport, they've led this entire race thus far. I'm not so sure I like that strategy from them, because that could prove to be costly for them as far as they can't save any fuel out in the lead. I mean, they have to be the pace setters, so you know that they're really not going to have anything saved, whereas the Williams Chill Blast car could possibly save a bit more fuel, actually definitely could save a bit more fuel, just sitting behind them, and that could prove to be crucial going into the second half of this race.
Or my alternate strategy, my alternate opinion right now is that actually Josh Rogers is running his own fuel number at the front of the field, and everyone else is just playing with him. The reason why I say this Look at these lap gaps between P8 and P number 9. Lap number 19, 6 tenths of a second gained by RS Competition. At 20, almost a full second. Half a second on lap number 21. They are about 2 laps away at this point from getting the draft and making this now what will be an 11-car train at the front of your field. You got to think, I mean, Josh Rogers is a smart Australian cookie. He certainly knows what he's doing, being a winner, of course, in the iRacing World Championship Series in 2019. He knows what he's doing at the front of the field, but Coanda quite often like to run races from the front. There's a little bit of gamesmanship, though, a little bit of mind games, I think, starting to come into play in this race.
Yeah, there certainly is, and that really also could be the case, just like you said. I mean, they could just be absolutely setting the pace in this race and pretty much forcing everyone else to follow it. But look here, look at Alasse back. He is now really close to the rear of that Astro Gaming Altus eSports car of Lasse Soren right now. And he's coming on strong, and he's pulling PRT with him. But right now, the team at CATENG of Phillipp is starting to fall off the back of that PRT car.
Yeah, they're 7 tenths of a second to the rear right now is Phillipp in the BMW CATENG car as they work in, all these drivers, by the way, working towards a bus stop chicane once again. The gap, about 1 second is where you'll start to pick up the toe. And Lasse Bakker has the fastest lap of the day. If he catches the toe properly, this lap or the next lap, then he could well end up getting the fastest lap of the day again, because he's going to have a momentous draft on either this lap or the next lap. As again, well, look at that. We talked about him going back a little bit. Phillipp back up. Oh, 2-1 special down below the yellow line. You can't do that in a couple of weeks, Phillipp, as you'll get yourself a penalty. But he forces his way through there, down in towards turn number 1. That was a little bit cheeky.
What a move there from Phillipp. And good on Lasse Sorensen as well for realizing the send that Phillipp was doing there. He had such a draft off that PRT car and the RS competition car just ahead of him, and he slams it below the yellow line, and he takes the position down in towards turn number 1. That was quite the move, I will have to say. And he's done waiting around right now, and so too is that PRT car. They're trying to get by Lasse back as well, and a little bit of contact was made. Lasse back is going to now have to salt himself down in 11th place, so he's lost 2 spots in the span of about half a lap.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those things we can almost send to INSA in a couple of weeks' time and say, this is one of the things that you need to tell drivers maybe not to do. Is side by side again, Lasse back and the Pure Racing team car of Sebastian Schlambach as they head themselves down into the bus stop chicane. You've got yourself a lap down car there in the mix as well. Well, Phillipp, although he got himself past, he is now once again in no man's land, because 1.7 seconds he is behind Lasse Sorensen in the number 83 Astro Gaming Altus eSports car, and Lasse back, well, he's now 1 second behind to the rear. So, I said earlier, you need a dance partner. You can't really run this race alone. We got behind, by the way, the Bronze 56K car. We saw Wyatt Goodham, actually at this corner here, down at turn number 1, have an incident about 20 minutes ago, being pushed a little bit wide again on the exit of turn number 2. But Wyatt Goodham in the Bronze 56K car trying to work his way back up through the field as he's got himself past Black Spot Racing and the International Horseshoe.
And he will move himself up, but Maxim Benovic is coming back in the Black Spot car. He isn't able to do anything with it, and it's really hard to pass it right here. This is one of those spots that is so difficult to pass, and he thinks better of actually trying it. And another one right here. Those are pretty much, you can count these 2 corners off, the one that we just went through and the one that we're through now, as passing opportunities on the racetrack. And that limits this track, which already has very limited passing opportunities, limits it down that little bit more. So that just is one of the things that these drivers also have to think about, because it is a very difficult track to pass at. this is another thing they got to start thinking about towards the end of the race.
See, you think it's hard to overtake. I think it's actually pretty easy if you time your moves. And one of the things about Daytona, I always say, you've got to be able to time your moves. It's a little bit easier in GTE cars compared to the Daytona prototypes that we'll see in a couple of weeks' time. As I was saying, Phillipp was actually up within second on the back straightaway, heading onto back straightaway. But get this, he loses 0.9 of a second from the exit of NASCAR Turn 2 to the end of the lap. That is just how impressively big the toe is at this track. Your top 8 along at the bottom of your screen quickly for you right now, with almost 45 minutes worth of racing scored complete. It is VOS Koana Sim Sports leading the way from Williams eSports Chill Blast. Team Redline, they've got 3rd and 4th place, with Apex Racing Team in 5th place. Ronin Sim Sports run in 6th, and then you've got, well, Racecraft eSports Lockbirds and just getting past Astro Gaming Altus eSports actually, as they work themselves through turn number 5. We'll get ourselves there a quick second look at that one. This was down in towards turn 5, and what happened there? Was that just our timing score? It was our timing scoring. I had a glitch. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, there. As onto the banking once again they come, and again, look at this. Phillipp was 0.9 of a second heading out of NASCAR turn number 2, but you'll see that gap, unless Eng has a remarkable bust-up chicane, that gap actually should come down, although it was a good run with a bust-up chicane there for Phillipp, much better than what he had a lap previously. The gap down at a third, 0.7 of a second. He should now be within the draft, but he's not quite there. He's so close to getting the draft, and look at that time just start to extend up to 0.8 of a second, up to 0.9 of a second, to a second in towards turn number 1. If he was just 1/10 of a second closer, Tyler, we could have started to have a 9-car train. But behind, Nicky team is putting a lot of pressure right now on Wyatt Gooden, who in turn is putting pressure on the number 13 running Sim Sports car.
Yeah, they really are all going at it here in this second group. No one is calming down. And as we'll see, I think that was Black Spot Racing. Yes, it was, down the inside of Los Carches in the number 44. And right now he will move his sights, Will Maximilian Benovic, to the Phoenix eSport Racing green car just ahead of him. So, but this entire second train is really starting to battle quite hard now. And they're really not staying in line all that much, and they're not helping out their chances of catching that front group, which is becoming big, ever so much bigger every single lap. And as we say that, Phillipp is in the draft of that front group now.
He is. He's caught them as we go back on board of him. And one thing that is worth noting is that you spend 45 minutes of a stint holding position, getting into position. The pit stop here, getting on towards pit road, it might look easy. It's just a case of pulling off to the left-hand side and slowing that car down to 55 miles an hour. I've commentated, I've raced a number of races here at Daytona, a number of races at tracks similar to it, like Indianapolis, when it's a lot harder in practice to get on towards pit road than it is when you just look at it, as it was almost a big send there by Annie. Does send it down the inside. That's over the Racecraft eSports Lockbird car of Brian Lockwood, and up into P number 8, Lockwood down into P number 9. But what I was trying to say, Tyler, getting on towards pit road, it looks easy, but if you got 10 cars coming towards pit road at the same time, it is almost a case of being millimeter perfect. Otherwise, you run the risk of locking the brake, hitting another car, ruining your race.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you just really can't do anything like it in practice. I mean, you can't simulate a perfect entry to pit lane, because whenever you've got so old tires, that also adds to the distance of braking. Whenever you have a bunch of other cars around you that you have to deal with, that adds to everything else you've got to try and recognize when you're coming into the pit lane. And I don't think I've commentated on a race at Daytona that hasn't had someone misjudge the pit entry and either speed on pit entry or end up spinning out and collecting another car with them.
Yeah, it's a wonderful shot there by up above here at Daytona, in towards the bus stop chicane. Camera's just going to flick around right about now. This is pure racing team we're focused on. That is the number 3 car running in 11th place. RS Competition just ahead of them on track. RS Competition 1.1 seconds behind your leading group, looking to maybe make it an 11-horse race out front right now. The car behind Pure Racing Team, just to let you know, are a car that's lapped down. Now at Daytona, if you've got a car that's fast, this actually isn't necessarily an issue. It can be worthwhile to have a lap down car helping to pull you around the racetrack, but at the same time, a lot of teams say it's a distraction and it's not necessarily worth the extra lap time to have another team who you know you're not racing, because quite often if you lap down, who knows how hard you're going to resist when the driver who is a lap ahead tries to go past.
Yeah, it certainly can be, and as we just, if we can flick back to this front battle, you can see Phillipp is getting all sorts of impatient here behind the Astro Gaming Altus eSports car just ahead of him. He is really starting to move himself on the field quite quickly right now, is Phillipp. He's up in the 7th and he's gone by Rowan Simsport. So Phillipp is someone we need to keep an eye out on here towards the second half of this race. But with his stint coming to a close here very, very soon, he'll be handing that car over to Nicky Catsburg in a few short minutes' time.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we assume that if somehow BMW Team CATENG win this race or get a podium, they're not going to be getting the money. It'll be the team who is the next in line. And certainly, there won't be the need for them to get an invite to Munich, because they'll be at Munich most likely anyway. We check in again with Pure Racing Team very quickly in the number 3 car. So I wanted to go back and actually turn our attention to the other works driver, not a BMW works driver, but a works driver nonetheless for another certain car manufacturer, 10 seconds behind your leader. This is Nicky Team looking to the outside of Rowan Simsport, but not able to make the move there down in towards turn 1. In fact, Phoenix Racing Esports Green were trying to make the move around the outside of Nicky Team through turn number 1. Wasn't able to do so. That's Kevin Volk there in the number 23 car.
Yeah, and right now, Phillipp is trying to make a move on Kevin Ellis Jr. He's going to go around the outside here through turn number 5. And this is really, these guys are up here are getting racy towards the front. We even saw Racecraft Esports Lock Burton miss the corner there in the, I believe it was turn number 3. They just ran a little bit wide, cost themselves a little bit of time. But another thing that I'm kind of interested in is that Rowan Simsport Blue is falling back right now, falling down quite a few fair positions here quite quickly in the towards the end of this stint. Yeah,
they are. And Brendan, of course, we've seen them on the other endurance series that we broadcast. Great to see them. I had to remember it's a bronze-coloured car. I almost couldn't come up with the colour name to identify them. I won't say what I said on the last broadcast, I promise. But let's check in with Team Redline, shall we? Because we've got ourselves Gianni Vecchio running in 3rd place. We've got Max Benecke in 4th place. They are, I assume, in that fuel-saving mode. Just have a look at the revs. They're not hitting 7,000 revs in that car. So I do believe that Max Benecke, as well, Gianni Vecchio just ahead of him, just lifting off the noisy pedal a little bit on that run down in towards turn 1. When we get the opportunity, I'd love to see another top driver who is pushing, seeing what their rev is as they come down in towards that first corner.
Yeah, would certainly be something that'd be interesting to looking into, as we have Rowan Simsport Blue and Racecraft Esports. They're going to go side by side now. This is definitely not the place you want to do it, and they think better of it. Does Rowan Simsport? They'll stick in behind that Racecraft Esports Lockbourne car, and they will currently have to slot themselves back down into the 9th position, as we have a little bit of moving further up. That Team Redline GT with Maximilian Benecke and the BMW Team CATENG car going side by side onto the banking.
Yeah, as this is on board with the number 25 car. No fuel saving, but looks of it for Phillipp Eng right now. Number 25 car going to look to the outside in towards the bus stop chicane. You can make a move on the outside into this corner, but Eng's had a couple of issues as well already today down at the bus stop chicane. That's cost him a little bit of lap time, and I'd say he's lost a little bit again there, as it allows Kevin Ellis Jr. to get right up behind him as the SDK Gaming Apex Racing team car looks to almost push Eng around the racetrack. But Eng lost 6 tenths to a second. That's the third time minimum in this race I've seen him make an issue there.
Yeah, he's definitely having a little bit of issues with the bus stop chicane, but that is to be expected as Williams Esports, Chill Blast, and Team Redline 2, they will go at it here on side by side, and Maximilian Beneke will move up into third and take that position away, and he'll immediately go down the inside of Williams Esports and Lauren Heinrich. So Maximilian Beneke and Heinrich side by side. Beneke gets pushed into the grass a little bit, and Williams Esports will hold on to that position for now. But now everything that Phillipp Eng just lost, he's gained right back, and he is right up behind Yanni Vecchio in the Team Redline GT number 2.
Max Beneke tried to make the outside line work into 5. That would have given him the inside line into turn 6. Just couldn't get that car straightened out on acceleration. But it is a great battle going on now for P2, 3, 4, and 5 on track. As these drivers, as I say, they now know what their fuel number is likely to be. They now know where they're likely to be heading into this sequence of pit stops. It's now a case of them making sure they get track position to give them the easiest run possible on towards pit road. We saw one team on pit road a moment ago as just having a look through your field. That's Full Send Racing, number 79 car, 33-second pit stop. So no tyres taken by them there. So it might be that we see a lot of teams trying to take the risky option and not taking tyres. I've got a feeling they're right on the money in terms of that sweet spot right now, as Max Beneke down the inside, up into second place, ahead now of Lauren Heinrich. You see a lot more teams on towards pit road. BMW CATENG on pit road, Bronze 56K on pit road, Phoenix Racing Esports Green all on pit road. So we've got 65 minutes of the race to go, Tyler, and we're seeing some teams come on early. The reason why is they just want to make sure they don't get run over in the potential 20-car pit party that will take place in a few moments' time.
And I actually really like the strategy of possibly doing a little bit shorter first stint and doing a bit longer second, especially if you're a bit more confident in your second driver's pace. It really can't be a bad thing to do. And something else as well, the track temperature is dropping a little bit from what we had at the start. From the start of the race, we saw 32 degrees C, but now it's down to about 30 degrees Celsius on the racetrack. So the track temperature is coming down. That means the second stint tires will be a little bit easier to manage, I would say. So it really wouldn't, in my eyes, isn't a bad strategy to try to come in for a little bit of a shorter first stint, but then really extend that second stint out for the extra 5 or 10 minutes.
We've just had a moment. Phillipp Eng, his pit stop was only 10.5 seconds there. So something's happened on pit road for him, and maybe the driver change wasn't ready, maybe the fuel wasn't going through already, but Phillipp Eng will have to make another pit stop.
So that could be crucial as we go side by side for the race lead here. VRS Coanda Simsport and Team Redline are going to go side by side. A little bit of contact was made there out of turn number 6, I believe. And as they head onto the back straightaway now, Williams eSports Chill Blast looks to take over second spot from Team Redline, and they will do it. And Maximilian Beneke will have to slot back in line. But that was a pretty large bit of contact there that we had heading out of, I believe, what was turn 5 or turn 6. And Beneke now below the yellow line. They're going to go 3 wide down to the bus stop chicane. This doesn't usually end well. And Josh Rogers smartly kind of backs out of it and then goes right back down the inside of Beneke.
Yeah, you know what? There's no love lost between Josh Rogers and VOS Goanna Simsports and Max Beneke. First in Pure Racing Team and now in Team Redline. They did not see eye to eye for much of 2019. I remember there was a start of the GT 500 that took place at the Nürburgring Nordschleife as a part of Sim Racing Expo. They were not talking after that one. They were not talking really after Frankfurt. These are two very serious rivals. As we go on board with Josh Rogers, he's fallen down all of a sudden into P4 here, and wondering whether Josh Rogers just realised that this is when everyone else is going to get aggressive, and it's just not worth him battling and fighting. You can overtake at this track here. So long as you stay with your leaders, there shouldn't be too many issues. And actually, interesting point here. If you are running maybe down the line a little bit, and you see drivers peel to the left, you can adjust your strategy accordingly. Sometimes leading the race leaves you as a sitting duck when everyone else thinks about pit strategies, and I've had it happen to me before in the past, that you're the only one to come down on pit road. You've got no one to work with when you come back out on track.
And that's something that VRS Coanda Simsport team could be thinking about here, and possibly just using, like you said, reacting to what their competitors do instead of trying to be the team that's proactive with it, because you don't want to even get in another situation where everyone else behind you comes in, leaves you out to run all by yourself, and now you're down a load of positions because you didn't pit with everyone else. And as we will just tick over the hour mark here in just about 30 seconds time, this is when we're going to start seeing pit stops start to cycle through here. And but one thing that was interesting here is Williams eSports pulled quite a gap to Maximilian Beneke, but if you just look, the draft is so incredible as 2 cars will dive down onto pit road. That'll be Team Theme and Race Spot Black, who will come to the line, who will come to pit road. Yeah,
there is Team Theme 60 miles an hour. Nicky Theme was actually going a little bit too fast at one point now. Wondering, we'll keep an eye out on whether or not he gets a penalty or not. So far today, no one, by the way, has taken a set of tyres, except for Apex Racing Team's number 63 car. That's how far down your field you have to get 31st place as it stands right now to Jake Robertson before you actually get your first team who have taken tyres with their pit stop. So, track conditions dipping below 30 degrees Celsius in terms of track temperature seems to mean that everyone is just taking fuel only right now. And a track like this, fresh tyres are worth something, but they're not worth as much compared to some other tracks that we'll have in our schedule. Interlagos, for example, almost guarantee the teams will have to take themselves a set of tyres when they pit there at the end of our 6 race campaign in the BMW 120 Series of 2020. We are over halfway through the race right now. 58 minutes remaining on the race clock. We're on board with Max Beneke in the Team Redline GT car. As does anyone go to the left? Yes. Williams eSports onto the lane. Team Redline onto the lane. A lot of drivers on towards pit road there in one very big bundle. I want to show you that one again from up above, because one driver who managed to get himself quite a good run there was actually Josh Rogers. As we see all these drivers coming on towards pit road. Look at Rogers, top of your pictures. Oh, guy behind there, just sliding on towards pit road. Rogers did gain quite a bit though.
Yeah, he certainly did, and right now everyone doing their driver swaps. And like you said, I don't think anyone will be taking tires at this point, but it's certainly still something that we could see a team do, because I'm almost curious to know whether Apex Racing Team possibly used their number 63 team as kind of an experimental team to see what taking tires benefits were, so that they can make a more educated call on the number 99 team, currently being piloted by Jamie Fluke. So I wonder if they almost use that as kind of a little experiment just to see if there is something happening there.
Yeah, Kei Kashiba, by the way, currently leads away in the Williams eSports BenQ car. However, they had incidents early on. They came on towards pit road, and as a consequence, they are out of sequence with everyone else. BMW CATENG with Phillipp Eng, they are out of position because they only had a 10.5 second pit stop on their first run. So they've got to do a driver change and take fuel at some point down the line. Let's say G out of eSports, they only had a 9.5 second pit stop with Andrew Carl, so they too are out of position. The winners out of pit road, Team Redline GT. It is Max Venig now behind the wheel of the number 70. They are 0.6 of a second ahead of Mitchell de Jong in the VRS Coanda SimSports car. Third car in line is Jonas Wollmeyer in the number 72 car. Reminder to those of you who do follow sim racing quite a bit, Pure Racing Team, they essentially shut up shop at the end of 2019. A number of their drivers headed over to Team Redline. They include Jonas Wollmeyer and Max Venig and Max Benecke, which is why you now see two very different sets of names in the Team Redline number 70 and number 72 cars. It's business as usual, of course, so for the number 81, the partnership of Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. Rogers has done his time behind the wheel. It's now Mitchell de Jong who will put that Coanda SimSports car to its paces for the end of the event. And Alexander Voss now behind the wheel of the Williams eSports Chill Blast car. They are fourth in line with Pure Racing Team number 3, Sebastian Schellenbach, running fifth in line, and Apex Racing Team, Jamie Fluke, running in sixth in line, as we just see a driver. That was Ashtray Gaming out of eSports. I thought they were coming on pit road. Something's happened to them. Just gonna go and have a look at the replay. It looks like they had a moment down. They did have a moment down at turn number 5. Back end stepping out on them there. Alexander Lauritsen losing a number of places, dropping that car outside of a net top 10 as a consequence.
And that was quite a big incident for them. That cost them a little bit of time, and it has, most crucially, cost them the draft to the front group at this point. So not what they wanted here coming out of the pit lane quite early, but like you said, it was Team Redline who was the winners out of pit lane. But Mitchell de Jong, we know how quick he's been. We've seen him in the Endurance World Championship this year. He really has some pace in that BMW, and he is going to look for the race lead right now. And it's also Williams eSports Chill Blast side by side. They're actually going to go 3 wide into turn number 1. That usually doesn't work, but it is Team Redline GT2 against Wollmeyer who will be the biggest beneficiary out of that one.
Yeah, let's not forget that Williams eSports Chill Blast car had a moment down at turn number 1, lap number 1, turn number 1. So they were thinking about that one as they headed down 3 wide with Coanda SimSports and Team Redline. As Jonas Wollmeyer just ahead there in the Team Redline number 72 car of Mitchell de Jong, Coanda SimSports. Interestingly enough, Eddie Irvine in 1997 was battling it out with Jacques Villeneuve. At this stage, Jacques Villeneuve had himself basically was running on a suspended license, and there was a situation of having one team car hold up another team car. Almost thinking that's what Jonas Wollmeyer might do right now to Mitchell de Jong to allow Max Venig in the number 70 car to pull out a little bit of a gap here, because this could well be perfect for Team Redline, running themselves essentially first and second place net, and Mitchell de Jong is going to have to now try and get past Eunice Warmeyer, and already they are 1 second behind Max Wennig in the 70.
Yeah, and that certainly could be something that we could see. I mean, it's not something that we haven't seen in the past. Teams working together and using their second car and second drivers to really kind of change a little bit of the race. And it's not something that I wouldn't be surprised if they are trying to do this intentionally or unintentionally, trying to hold up that number 81 VRS Coanda SimSport car to not allow them to get closer. And look at this from Pure Racing Team. They're going to slot themselves past Mitchell de Jong there. You can see de Jong flashing the headlights. He's not very happy about that move. That was a very aggressive move from the PRT team. Yeah,
indeed. As let's have a look then at Mitchell de Jong. You can see some flashing lights there on the number 81 car. Look at the flashing lights there for Mitchell de Jong. And as a consequence, Max Wennig is now 1 second clear of everyone else. And this is, it's an interesting strategy, shall we say, by Team Redline. As I say, there's no love lost. Team drivers of the Team Redline car. Look at that one. The Pure Racing Team car of Sebastian Schollenbach then getting very sideways through turn number 6. And that just bunches everyone up even further as they work through NASCAR turn number 2. The lights are flashing again on that Coanda SimSports car as they work down now towards the bus stop chicane once again. I think this is going to be a critical corner in the race, and de Jong is going to have to stay behind that Pure Racing Team car. So all of a sudden, things are getting very difficult very quickly for this number 81 car, because now Alexander Voss is going to go on the right-hand side and going to work the outside line towards the start-finish line. No, this top 6 has really just picked up in the last 5 laps.
It certainly has. I mean, just look at the gap now that these two the two Team Redline cars now have over the rest of the field. They are really starting to pull away, and Mitchell de Jong will slot himself up in a 5th, but for a very short period of time. Team PRT will take over the 5th position, and they're still going to go side by side down and towards turn number 3, and they are still side by side on the exit. Mitchell de Jong will have the outside. That should be the one to take it, but they are going to really be getting close here, and they're still going to stay side by side through the kink, but they decide better of it, which is probably for the best for these two teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at that in towards the International Horseshoe. Outside line, and a little bit of dust being kicked up there by Pure Racing Team on the inside. The outside line, you do have the better acceleration zone, gives you the inside line into the kink. You see just how close they were together, and Sebastian Schollenbach does back out of it in the end, and consequently allows Mitchell de Jong to go through. It's worth noting, by the way, that Schollenbach is one of these teams who, if I'm not very much mistaken, hasn't got a second driver running in this event, because right now it's only been him in this event so far, and they are 11 laps into a stint, so they need to come on towards pit road again at some point soon. They'll have to do a driver change, and they'll have to potentially take a splash and dash.
That's certainly a possibility. The only thing else I could be thinking is that they're possibly just going to run this as a single driver event and then just take the DQ in the end of the race once all of that is said and done. That is the only other thing that I can think of. Would be the reason that he is running in this event, as he takes back over the 3rd place position now. And these two Team Redline GT cars have absolutely run away with it. It's nearly a 3-second gap back to the Pure Racing Team car, who is currently in a very heated battle with Mitchell de Jong.
Isn't it ironic that after Pure Racing Team essentially shut up shop, it's a Pure Racing Team car from the ashes that is costing Coanda SimSports the opportunity to go and battle for the race win here in the BMW 120, because now your two Team Redline cars have been able to pull away, and there's your top 8 down at the bottom of your screen. And Team Redline GT, number 70, 7 tenths of a second over Team Redline GT2, Pure Racing Team in 3rd, Koala Sim Sports in 4th, Williams eSports in 5th, Apex Racing Team in 6th, Ronin Sim Sport in 7th, and Racecraft Esports Lockburton round out your top 8. So, very interesting turn of events here. To keep you up to date with things that are going on a little bit further down in your field, let's check in with the number 95 car. It is Team, and we've now got in that car your second driver of the event, and this one in the number 95 car is now Andrej Ratkovic, and he is only about half a second behind Black Spot Racing in this battle for 13th place on track.
These two teams are in a very close battle at the moment. And if you just look behind that team theme car, you have the Los Cangaris car just in their mirrors now. It doesn't look like they're going for any sort of moves, but at this point, this second group is looking like it is going to be heating up here towards the end of this race as they get that much closer and closer.
Yeah, that is the number 44 car, Tobias Serrano T in the number 44 Los Cangaris car, who are about half a second back from Team Theme right now, as we've got about 3/4 of an hour of this race to go. Full Send Racing, we saw them. They had an incident earlier on in this event, if memory serves me right. Ryan Barnveld now behind the wheel of that car, and it's Arthur Hoke, who's just, by the way, got in behind the wheel of that Williams eSports BenQ car, who is half a second up the road.
Certainly has indeed. Just looking right now at where that Full Send car started, because I thought that they started quite far. No, they actually started up in 11th place, so they have not had the greatest race thus far. Neither has the Williams eSports car just ahead of them. They're down 10 places off their starting position. And I really think that for a race like this, where you started really kind of set how you did almost in this race, because some of the teams that started really far up to the front now have had a bit of unluckiness, and they've been shuffled, and actually some of them are out of this race. But I think that the drivers who started a bit farther up were almost safer than the drivers who started further down the field. These guys seem to have more incidents. As we look at this between Pure Racing Team and BRS Coanda Simsport in towards turn number 1, they're still going to go side by side down towards turn 3.
Yeah, and look at that. They stay side by side for the International Horseshoe. De Jong does now be able to get the better line. He can power through. So De Jong up into 3rd place right now. And that also allows Alexander Voss to work up into 4th place. Sebastian Challenbach there, I think, just finally admitting defeat, because now look at the gap between 2nd and 3rd place. 4.2 seconds. Lap gaps up at the bottom of your screen. Just look how much. There's almost 3/4 of a second on lap number 41 and 42.
That really cost that number 81 BRS Coanda Simsport car a lot of time to the front two Team Redline GT cars. And even then, if Mitchell de Jong can somehow in the next 44 minutes close up to the back of Jonas Wohlmeier in the Team Redline GT 2, then he still has to go past Jonas Wohlmeier before he can even get to Maximilian Wenig out in the race lead. So the Team PRT right now, let's just say, has a very safe gap to the race lead.
Yeah, indeed. As this is going to be very interesting. I want to keep our eye out, though, on that number 3 Pure Racing Team car. In fact, let's do a little bit of Race 1 TV fan immersion on board number 3 car, Sebastian Schallenbach, as he looks to the outside of Mitchell de Jong in towards 1. Racing team in the number 3 car as they work themselves down towards turn 2 once again on track. Let's go back a little bit, shall we? Astro Gaming Ultra eSports number 83 car. We're on board with Alexander Lawrenson in the number 83 as they head into the International Horseshoe car, going very wide on the outside. That's the number 226 car, who is the KC Racing eSports car, who are a lap down. They're just getting out of the way of the faster cars, Tyler.
Yeah, very respectfully moving out of the way of these two, who are currently in a battle for 10th position. And they're not too far behind, though, this second group of cars here. And I say second group because I think that we can both assume here that the two Team Redline cars are in their own group at the moment. But the RS competition and Bronze 56K, there's about 4 seconds separating them at the moment. So right now, Bronze 56K isn't too far behind that top 9 and really up in towards what it is the main lead group. And you can just see from the graphic there, Mitchell de Jong has started to close in on Jonas Wollmeyer just a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. He needs to gain a whole lot more than 7 1/100ths of a second.
And also, one of the issues that de Jong's been having over the last couple of laps is that he still had pressure by Pure Racing Team, by Williams Esports Shield Blast. Now, there's a little bit more breathing room for Mitchell de Jong as they come past the start-finish line. Let's have a look at the lap gaps this time around, and okay, that's a little bit better. He's able to gain 4 tenths per second over Jonas Wollmeyer that last time around, but it's a little bit hot there with de Jong in towards turn 1 and 2. Ironically, Tyler, there'd be some here who'd argue that maybe Koana needs to have the drivers the other way around, have Mitchell start the race and have Josh Rogers then do the second stint, because this is no offense at all to Mitchell de Jong. I mean, he's a great driver, always one of these friendliest faces in the sim racing paddock, but in terms of the hardest charger, you'd have to say that Josh Rogers just that tiny bit ahead of Mitchell.
Yeah, I would almost have to agree with that. I think that Josh Rogers is a bit more aggressive than Mitchell de Jong, and he's really just not afraid to throw the car in there, whereas I think Mitchell de Jong is one of the more safer drivers, and in a lot of cases would be the better driver to finish the car out, because he's not going to go out and just throw it away towards the end of an endurance race like this. He's going to be smart and calculated with his moves, and some of the time that can pay off very, very well for you, and others it can kind of hurt you a little bit. And I think that you're right about that point, that they should have done the drivers the other way around and had Josh Rogers in the second stint so that he could have really battled hard for that race win.
Running on board of Black Spot Racing, the number 6 car, and Igor Odnikov in the battle for 12th through 14th place on track, because just ahead of Igor Odnikov is Andreas Jochimsen in the Running Sim Sports car, but just behind you've got Andrei Rakovic in the number 95 Team Theme car. So this is a nice little battle going on. 12, 13, 14 on track right now. So just because we've got some craziness going up the front of your field doesn't mean that there's not battles going on behind. By the way, live timing and scoring is available still. Visit racesport.tv/timing. Keep up to date with your favourite drivers throughout the course of this BMW 120 event, as Club de Volante GTE event, and Anthony Souza gaining over Apex Racing Team with Jake Robertson over the last couple of laps. That's going on for 25th place on the racetrack. To let you know, we had 50 drivers take the green flag here at Daytona. We've got 40 still circulating on track. 38 of them are currently on the lead lap. So despite some incidents, not that big a level of attrition, but also we've not had that many drivers fall a lap down. Admittedly, it is a 2-minute circuit here. Almost.
Yeah, we really haven't had that many drivers fall a lap down that aren't out of this race completely. There's only been 2 drivers. Now, there are quite a few who are near that cusp line, of getting going a lap down, but they're not quite at it yet, as we still ride on board with, I believe this is Black Spot Racing here, as they watch the battle between Roan and SimSport, and I believe that is a lapped car just ahead of them, and I believe Black Spot Racing will be able to slunge in towards turn number 1.
Yeah, that's the 226 car, the KC Racing eSports car we saw earlier on, being very courteous, allowing drivers to let them pass and out of the way. As ahead of them, by the way, we have got ourselves still 9 drivers separated by 6 seconds on track. Mitchell de Jong has started to catch up to the rear of Team Redline. The last couple of laps, he's turned in some better laps, and there we can see 3 laps now in the green for Mitchell de Jong. Down to 3.1 seconds is the gap. He's gained a second over the last 3 laps there or thereabouts. So now the question's going to be, number 3 car, do they try and push to get past the number 81 Commander SimSports car again?
That's going to be something that we're going to have to take a look at. Right now, they are right up on the bumper of Mitchell de Jong. He's going to make contact.
Oh!
Mitchell de Jong has missed the chicane, and that's allowed the number 3 car going spinning to the inside. But that could be crucial here for VRS Coanda SimSport.
Replay coming up now, so let's have a look at this. First of all, from the number 3's perspective, coming down into the braking zone, and that was a locked brake, shall we say, there for Sebastian Schallenbach. Let's go on board with him and ride that one on board in the number 3 car. You'll just see he gets himself right behind Commander SimSports, comes down into the brake. I don't quite know what that number 3 car is doing there, because you could clearly see the brake lights had come on that Commander SimSports car. There was no room down on the inside, so the polite terminology there to say is that there might have been a locked brake, but that's a polite version, I'm going to say there.
Yeah, I just want to say, what a job Mitchell de Jong did, though, to save that car. He nearly could have had a race-ending moment there. He is still just about 3.9 seconds off the back of that Team Redline car. As we have yet another replay here up on your screen. We can just see it. And yeah, I'm not sure really what to say about that one. But they have stayed in 3rd position as VRS Coanda SimSport, but that has just allowed the Team Redline cars to extend their gap even more now. And just to see where that pure racing team car has come out, he's come out down in 13th place. So definitely getting the worst end of the stick there, but yeah, I'm not really sure what to say about that incident.
And again, I'm not going to try and hype up this rivalry for the sake of doing so, but having been at 4 big live events over the last, 13, 14 months, I can tell you that Pure Racing Team and Commander SimSports did not get on. And I can now say, by virtue of a lot of the drivers from Pure Racing Team heading over to Team Redline, they don't get on. I mean, Team Redline and Coanda have had a rivalry that's been going on almost a decade, where you consider MyFreD, Freddy gaming into Coanda SimSports and Team Redline. Heated rivalries, of course. They were the only 2 teams that ever won the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Big rivalries going on, and well, is that a sign of things to come in 2020 between these set of drivers? Because I tell you what, if so, we're not going to need fireworks at the end of the race here in the sim. We got fireworks already.
Yeah, we certainly do. I mean, we knew the rivalry between these 2 teams, and really even between the 2 drivers in this race was so strong. We know that they did not get along coming into this one, and if there was any chance of them possibly getting along after this one, that's been blown right out the window.
Yeah, just to let you know, Kane Halliburton in the number 8 Racecraft Esports Lockburton car. Of course, Lockburton is a kind of merger of the names of Brian Lockwood, the first driver, Kane Halliburton in the second driver in that team. They've been battling out of running SimSport Blue and Diego Pinto in the number 12 car. This is the battle going on for 6th place on track, but this is that second pack of cars. It's got Alexander Vost, Apex Racing Team, Diego Pinto, Kane Halliburton, and also RS Competition in the mix. So we cannot forget there is a nice little battle going on. Although, saying that, talking about battling, we just had Williams eSports Chili Blast getting themselves past Koala Sim Sports, and this was down towards start-finish line. Replay coming up now.
And there you go. You can see on your replay on your screen, it's just going to be a simple move here for Williams. They're just going to be able to easily slot themselves in around that VRS Koala Sim Sport car. But what all this battling is doing is not helping these teams. All it's doing is just allowing these other two of Maximilian Wenning and Jonas Wohlmeier, who, by the way, Wohlmeier has taken over the lead of this race. All it's allowing these two teams to do is just continue to pull away, and they're nearly a 5-second gap then. At the line was the two team red line cars, so this battling is certainly not doing this second group any favors.
No, it's not. Let's go back in and check in on team for a moment. They are running in 15th place. They've got themselves Los Cangres just ahead of them, although Andrew Rakovic has been losing a bit of time, lap on lap now, over that 14th place car of Los Cangres. And in fact, what they've got to start worrying about is the fact that Arthur the Hook is gaining on them, and has gained on them over the last 3 laps.
Certainly has indeed. And they are, yeah, like you said, they're taking large chunks of time out of that team theme car. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have quite the tasty battle on our hands in just a few laps time for 15th place. Because these two teams are really getting close. And look at also Full Send Racing just behind them in number 79 car. They are right up behind Williams Esports BenQ. So we could have a 3-way fight for 15th going on very soon.
Nice. I just wanted to try and find out, by the way, what happened to Pure Racing Team. And they have fallen down into 11th place after that moment. And we said already, we still think we know they've got to make another pit stop at some point, as Radicals Online just went side by side with Optimal Sim Racing Red. And in fact, this is a 3-wide situation. I want to maybe get the tape rewinded a little bit, because it was very close past the stripe with these drivers, and we're going to see just how close it was. Then we can see on the inside line Optimal Sim Racing, Radicals Online on the outside as they come past the start-finish line. And actually, it's just a really good run by Optimal Sim Racing over Full Send Racing, and the number 22 car, Optimal Sim Racing, actually, I take that back, they got themselves past Radicals Online and the Phoenix Racing eSports green car.
Yes, they did.
Looking at them right now, actually, that's Antonio Titus in the number 22 cars. They head themselves onto the banking once again. Already they've been able to get themselves a 0.6 of a second advantage over those drivers behind them. And one thing I have noticed, and this might partially be due to the fact that almost no team has taken a set of tyres in this race, the gaps are starting to get up, because a lot of these teams are starting to struggle in that dirty air, in particular out of turn number 6, which it looks simple on paper, but it's not only doing that left-hander, it's then also the transition onto about 31 degrees of banking down at NASCAR turn number 2. And the turn itself, it's one that's so easy to outbrake yourself out. It's one I've done so many times myself, Tyler. But then more importantly, as Optimal Sim Racing Red actually then coming towards pit road, the thing for me is that once you get that car onto the banking, settling it down and to keep the revs is the thing that, as these tyres are now an hour and a half old, becomes more and more difficult. In fact, we should be able to get a bit of a good look here to go on board with Ronan Sim Sport Blue and Diego Pinto.
So we'll ride on board with them now. And I mean, it's a very difficult corner, like you said. Getting everything right through it every single time is something that's nearly impossible, I would say, to do for an entire 2 or 1 hour stint. It's such a difficult corner because of how loaded the car is on the outside. There's really no banking in the actual corner itself to help you out with that. Before you transition onto NASCAR 2, you are on a pretty much a very flat corner, so it's a very much a difficult and strange thing. If you've never driven on this circuit, it's something that can be a little bit daunting and very challenging, to say the least.
Yeah, and just to go back, there is a look, by the way, at your two leaders. If you haven't seen them for a while, it is Team Redline GT and Team Redline GT. They are your top two teams right now. Jonas Warmeyer in the leading car, Max Venig in the second place car. Jonas Warmeyer is sharing the car with Gianni Vecchio, and Max Benecke is the driver who's sharing the car with Max Wenig, who's currently behind the wheel of the number 70 car. And the two teams, of course, they have done a fantastic job. They've been at the front of the field pretty much all day long. I think the one disappointment out of this race is the fact that we didn't get the chance to see Astro Gaming Altus eSports at the start of this race, because of course they start on the outside of that front row. They've run themselves down into third place in towards turn number 1, but then they had the incident, and both them and Red Bull Racing eSports would have been fantastic to see in what has been a very heated battle here today.
Certainly has been, and if we look here at Williams Esports Chill Blaster, they're starting to close up to those two Team Redline cars at the moment. They're down what was at the line a 4.4 second gap. And yeah, so they're really starting to kind of close in on your front two Team Redline cars at the moment.
Yeah, the popcorn starting on social media. This is going to be interesting to keep a half eye on, as Bronze 56K, Carl Madoff on board of them as they scrap it out for 8th place of RS competition, and Martin Christensen in this battle for 8th position. Bronze 56K, of course, they had a moment early on in their first stint when they ended up getting turned around. I think they were the team that hit the wall down at turn number 1 as well, got themselves into the tyre barriers. They have, though, gone to the outside line in towards turn 1, and they've easily got themselves past the RS competition car. I mean, that was an easy pass. They didn't even have to get into the braking zone to make that one happen as the replay comes up.
You see the replay up here on your screen. We'll see how this happened here. And yeah, so they're just going to make a move here to the outside. And with a draft like this, it's really, the moves just become easier and easier down and towards turn number 1, and Bronze 56K will slot themselves up in towards 8th place ahead of RS competition. But whenever you have a draft like this at this kind of circuit, you can get it for such far back, it can create a massive effect and an insane overspeed for the driver behind, that if you're the driver ahead, you might as well just let them by, because it's no use in fighting.
I'm just having a look at the rear of the number 81, Mitchell DeYoung, the RS car and the Sports car. There is no real damage that I can see on that machine, as I'm just having a look, because Alexander Voss has had that third place now for quite some time over the number 81 car of Mitchell DeYoung, and as a consequence of that, Alexander Voss in third place hasn't really been able to eke out into the lead of this event that much. Of course, you've got to remember that there are prize money opportunities available for your top 3 teams. It's $1,200 per driver, so $2,400 in total to your winning team. $600 per team for second place, and $300 per team for third. Of course, the winning team will also get themselves an invitation to the end of year BMW Sim event, which will be taking place in Munich, and that is going to be fantastic. We were there for BMW Sim Live in Munich, a fantastic facility, actually, that was for that event. And although there were a couple of technical issues that unfortunately meant we didn't have the full slate of races that we wanted to, it was such a great event to be in Munich.
And it was even such a cool event for someone like me who even to just sit back and watch it. The racing there was absolutely incredible, and it's one of those things that I think, the drivers' money aside, that's what they're really here to fight for. These guys, I don't think, care so much about the money aspect of it. They want to go to that sim event in Munich and race against all of those different drivers in front of everyone from BMW.
Yeah, and the concept for BMW Sim Live 2019 was great as well. get yourself some sim racing fans, get yourself some media influencers, get yourself some works drivers and sim racers, put them all into a team and let them do battle with each other. As Astro Gaming Altus Esports, there is the number 83 car of Alexander Lauritsen. Right now we're on board of him because he's got the RS competition car just ahead, and of course this is the RS competition car who was passed a couple of laps ago by Bronze 56K. It's worth noting, we haven't really talked about this, Tyler. The second half of this race, we're getting more one car pulling up to another driver in the draft and being able to just accelerate ahead, because we haven't got as many packs in the second half of this event. This means it's easier for the passing car to try and make a move, although I say that, Alexander Lauritsen just sitting behind there into turn number 1.
Yeah, like you said, we're seeing a lot more of these single and two car packs. There's really only one major pack, and that is your leading pack that goes from 3rd down to 7th at the moment. And that's really it as far as big packs go. Everything else is down between single and double cars all the way through the field at the moment. So it's becoming easier to pass, like you said, and it's also becoming a bit longer in between cars, and drivers can't make up progression as quickly now because of the fact that there isn't these big pack racing anymore.
Yeah, to give you an update on some retirees, by the way, AAA Esports White out of the event. They were out very early on, as were Red Bull Racing Esports and Sebastian Job. I talked about how Sebastian Job came into 2020 with a huge wave of momentum after a very successful back end of 2019, but unfortunately it just didn't go to plan for him here today. Daytona Endurance Racing out, Prologue React Esports Pink Car, as well as AAA Esports, Rich Energy, Williams Esports Razor, Ghost Team Red, Ultimate Stonkmonkers, which is my favourite team name of the day, Evolution Racing Team number 126 car, and KC Racing Esports all out of the event. And I'm very sad, Tyler, that we haven't actually been able to say the Ultimate Stonkmonkers at all in this race.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of sad as well, because that is probably, I would have to put that up there, same as you, is that is probably the best team name of the day. So, yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that they're not in this race, and would have loved to see them continue, even if they had a very, very damaged car, just so that we could have set that team name a few times, as we currently ride on board with Josh Anderson in the Logitech G Altus Esports car. He just made up a move for 21st position at the moment, and he's currently now down the inside of Phoenix Esport Racing Green, and he'll make that one up as well. So 2 spots in a matter of about 1,000 feet for Josh Anderson. Yeah, and it's I've been saying Astro Gaming Altus Esports. I meant Logitech G Altus Esports. This is what happens when you get a sponsor as the first word in your team name. I always forget one over the other. It's worth noting, by the way, look at the Race for Relief banner that you can see on the front of that Logitech G Altus Esports car. We're going to see that again next week when we do our coverage of the 24 hours of Daytona. That banner's been put there, of course, due to the devastating wildfires that have been taking place in Australia over the last month or so. And Logitech G Altus Esports are primarily an Australian-based team. It's great to see them using the power of sim racing to try and raise awareness and some money in support of those who have suffered from the wildfires in Australia. Yeah, it's such an unfortunate thing that's happened down there, and it's so good to see a team like Logitech G Altus Esports getting on board with that, putting the banner on their car and running with that for the 24 Hours Daytona and for this event as well. It's really, really cool to see the sim racing community come out and really try and raise awareness for something that is such a terrible thing that's happening down in Australia.
Yeah, and we will be posting links on our social media channels for anyone that wants to use that banner for the 24 Hours of Daytona. We really do hope that you have the chance to check out the cause, and if you are willing to put that banner on your car next week for our 24 Hours of Daytona coverage. 17 minutes of the race still to go here in the first BMW 120 of 2020, as we just turn our attention back and we see the Astro Gaming Altus eSports car has now been able to get themselves past the RS competition car of Martin Christiansen and has pulled out about a half-second advantage. Williams eSports Chill Blast, we talked earlier on over the fact that they were closing a tiny bit here and there over Team Redline. Well, on lap number 58, they did close by 29 one-thousandths of a second. However, net over the last 3 laps, they have lost about a third of a second. Alexander Voss in the Williams eSports Chill Blast car and Max Vennig behind the wheel of the Team Redline GT car. And those two drivers, well, not really much changing, but after the hoopla that we saw about 25 minutes ago, we haven't really seen anything from Mitchell de Jong.
No, and I think that could be, that leads me to the question, of did that damage do a bit more than what we think it does and what it looks like from the outside on Mitchell de Jong there? Because Mitchell's definitely not slow. I was actually expecting Mitchell, even after that incident, to really make a charge forward on those 2 Team Redline cars, but he really just hasn't done that. I mean, he just kind of stalled out behind this Williams eSport Chill Blast car at the moment, and he's just not really going anywhere at this time.
I do feel a little bit bad over the fact that we haven't really given much love to your race leader. It is the number 72 car of Jonas Wallmeyer. Let's actually ride a little bit on board with him, shall we, as we do a little bit of Racewhat TV fan immersion. Whilst we were looking at that one, they swapped positions. And now it's Max Vennig who's leading the way in the number 70 car. And I was thinking about this, Tyler. Which one of the 2 Team Redline cars was going to win this race? Were they going to try and orchestrate something? Were they going to try and do something? Because we talked about the fact that, of course, the top team will get the invitation to Munich. And it's worth thinking about a big team like Team Redline. Who would they want to have punch their ticket first?
It's certainly something that they would have to think about. And it's something else, too. Would this be a case, because they have such a big lead over the course of their 2 cars, would they even try and tell the drivers who should win this race? Or will they just let them battle it out the old-fashioned way and just let them see straight up who can win against the other one? So that, to me, is going to be kind of a big question mark towards the end of this race. Do they just try and orchestrate it and make sure that they get a good victory? Or do they just kind of let these cars go at it, maybe take a little bit bigger risk with them?
Jamie Fluke's just gotten past Mitchell de Jong. So Apex Racing Team up into 4th place now. Coanda Simsport down into 5th. I'm wondering what the situation is for Coanda, because I don't see any damage. We're going to get a nice little look here, he says, famous last words, of Mitchell de Jong. In fact, if we have a look from the onboard of Ronin, there is a little bit of damage to the rear, but that's not something that I would suspect would cost them too much in terms of straight line speed, especially as they've had the draft. But maybe the fact that they had to do that miraculous save might have just taken something out the tyres a little bit.
I think that to me is a bit more logical than the damage costing them this much time. I think that it would have been that they would have just had such big slides on the tires and such big lockups that would have cost them more than the damage on the car would have, because I've even gone a little bit deeper into it and really looked at it here on my own cameras, and I just can't see anything that would be pace hampering like this was to Mitchell de Jong. So I really think that if anything, the tires are costing them more, or that just really shooking Mitchell de Jong up that much. But I just really don't think that that's the case.
Yeah, as that's your main little peloton going on. Don't confuse that with another peloton with all the weird adverts. That was an actual proper peloton going on. Actually, Apex Racing Team, they're looking to get themselves a bit of money here because they were very close to the rear of Williams eSports Chill Blast in towards turn number 1, and Racecraft eSports Lockburton are right on the back as a little bit of lawnmower racing going on there with the number 17 car, Bronze 56K. It's all picked up all of a sudden here in this pack, and Apex Racing Team, again, there's $600 at stake here if they can get themselves past Alexander Voss.
They are really pushing hard for it now as Apex Racing Team and Jamie Fluke. They want themselves $600. They want it badly. You could just see he is really now all over the back almost of that Williams eSports Chill Blast car. And at this point, I think that this second group has realized there is no way we are catching the two Team Redline cars unless they take each other out. So we might as well just battle for the final podium position.
Yeah, I think at that point now they've realised that. They've had a couple of people out front of that train and they've not been able to dent that lead at all from Max Wennig and Jonas Warnmeyer. In fact, Max Wennig's pulling away now over Jonas Warnmeyer. The gap's almost up to 1 second, so Warnmeyer is going to potentially lose the draft. We'll bring you up to date with that story in a moment, because here we are on board with Jamie Fluke once again in the Apex Racing Team number 99 car, and Williams eSports Chill Blast just ahead of Alexander Voss. You can see in the virtual mirror there is Mitchell de Jong looking to the high side as they come in towards turn number 1. And Ronin, we're battling it out there with Racecraft eSports Lockburton as well. And Bronze 56K have come on towards pit road, do a second pit stop, as well as Full Send Racing.
They have misjudged the fuel, it looks like, there for Bronze 56K. I'm not quite sure what the case was there for the Full Send Racing number 79 car, but I would assume that they were in a similar situation. They're just barely misjudging the fuel there here, and we only have 9 minutes left in this race to go, so not a whole lot of time left for these drivers to sort themselves out.
Yeah, one little cone being kicked over there on the entrance into turn number 6, as there's still lots of battle going on. But let's go back and talk about this story quickly, because Team Redline are, I mean, do you slow down and help bring the other one back into the draft, or are you saying with 10 minutes to go, sorry mate, it's my race now?
It kind of depends, to be honest with you, though, because I just don't think that the number 70 Team Redline GT car has any reason to do that. I mean, they're 6.3 seconds ahead of Williams eSports Chill Blast now. And it's not like they're in a close battle between these two. So there's really no reason for the leading Team Redline car to drop back up and pick up the second car, because they're not in any immediate danger from the drivers behind.
Yeah, and just having a look, by the way, at the rev count for Jonas Warnmeyer. And I was saying earlier on that Josh Rogers was sitting about 69,000 6,900 RPM. That's about similar to what Jonas Warnmeyer was doing there. It's a little bit less, but you've got to remember, of course, late on into a run, double stinting your tyres, the lap times are going to come down a little bit. And in fact, we can actually show you the lap time difference between the start of the race and where they are now, as they're currently about 35 seconds into the lap itself. But, well, last time by at 141.686. You've got to be honest here, Tyler. That's only 7 tenths of a second drop-off over almost 2 hours worth of racing. And a lot of these teams that are running this car or a GTE car, this is valuable testing data for a week's time for the Daytona 24 hours, because we know at night they will always double, if not treble, stint their tyres. But the data here gives you a very interesting cut-off point when you can double stint the tyres and lose less than 1 second a lap to your fastest.
Yeah, it certainly does for a team that is going to be running this car next week. This could be some of the most valuable testing that they have. They have everyone showing all of their cards at this point. There's really no one's holding back in an event like this. They are going full tilt for even in this kind of event, and that's the exact same that they will be in next week in the 24 Hours Daytona. So this could be some of the most valuable testing and data gathering opportunities for these teams, and not only their own car, but also their competitors' cars when they have to race them in a week.
Ronin Sim Sports have just got themselves past. Will they get themselves past? Joanna Sim Sports into turn 1 through turn number 2. They have got themselves clear, so Ronin have been able to get themselves up a position as we have a look then on the replay. This is with Diego Pinto as he just gets a wonderful run. He does go below the yellow line, he does there, down in towards the tri-oval. Now, there are no real rules about that in terms of the iRacing First Sporting Code. The official rule is, if you go below the yellow line, you come back up and you cause an incident, then you will be potentially punishable under the iRacing First Sporting Code. However, in that circumstance, Mitchell de Jong did give him enough room to allow him to come back up onto the racing surface.
Very respectable racing there between the two drivers, and mostly there to Mitchell de Jong for not just shutting the door on him and making him cause an incident. But I think that was the safest thing that he could have done right now. He can't afford, I don't think, to be letting an incident happen like that. He's almost had a race-ending incident already in this race, and if he wants any chance at even claiming P3, he's got to be in a pretty good position as we look here on the Radicals Online car, currently sitting down in 19th place. They are just behind the Full Send Racing number 79 car, who is then just behind, I think that's the Team Theme car, who's gotten ahead of both of them. So a little bit of change of position here for all the 3 of these cars on this lap. Yeah,
just to let you know that your biggest mover inside your top 10, that is actually now Ronin, as Koana lose another position, another lap, another position, as that time it was Racecraft eSports. Actually, no, they weren't able to get past Mitchell de Jong that time by. We say that because they almost go side by side once again for the International Horseshoe. But there we are, on board of Mitchell de Jong, as Ronin Sim Sports are your biggest mover inside your top 10. In your top 15, Los Kangaroos got 14 places here today, so fantastic running by them. Let's take G out to eSports. We talked about them over how they started this race on the outside of row number 1. They ended up having a moment down turn 1 at lap 1. But look at that, Radicals Online into your top 20 now, up 31 places in this event today. They are your biggest movers.
Yeah, and Radicals Online is actually down onto pit lane once again here. Just as we said that, and they've left Full Send Racing number 79 and the Team Theme car to battle it out. But just as you were saying that, they dived down on the pit road, and now they will lose a few spots in the process of that one. So unfortunate for Radicals Online, they're not the only ones who has misjudged the fuel here today in this race. We've seen another couple of teams misjudge it as well, and that's so unfortunate whenever you have such a good run going, and then you realize that you've misjudged the fuel by just a few minutes.
Yeah, Rob Cast, the team principal over at Radicals Online, would not be happy with that one. I would assume he might have been at Autosport this weekend, so maybe he would have sent a deputy out to do the fuel calculations for this race, who might well be fired after that one, because it was a great run. Of course, they started, and Ronin's just gone off After having a great run, getting past Coanda a couple of moments ago, they just pushed themselves wide down at turn number 1, and now Ronin are down into 7th place on track. Here's the replay, and from everything I can see, yeah, there was no one around them. They just outbraked themselves down into turn number 1.
A very unfortunate incident. It's not like they were diving into the corner too deep either. That was kind of a weird incident there from Ronin Simsport. They almost let off a bit early to do a bit of fuel saving and then just still somehow missed the corner. That was a very odd incident from them.
Yeah, there's another. It's through the center of turn 2. I think the back end, you can just see it started to wobble a little bit through the center of the corner. And then after that, they kind of let off the brake in order to, I think, stop the car from sliding. But as a consequence, they just pushed wide as a consequence. I said that about 4 times in the space of 10 seconds.
It was very costly indeed. There wasn't, as we ride on board with Racecraft eSports Lockburton. They are going to have another go this time at the VRS Coanda Sim Sport car. They pretty much try to move on them every single lap, I think, here in the last 5 or so laps. So they are definitely wanting to get by that VRS Coanda Sim Sport team and Mitchell DeYoung. And now they will just let him have it, will VRS. And Racecraft eSports Lockburton is up into 6th place. Actually make that 5th place here because of Ronin Sim Sports incident. But right now, Apex Racing Team is down to 0.3 of a second behind Williams Chill Blast. And the Team Redline GT number 2 was as low as a 1/10 of a second behind the leading Team Redline car.
All starting to pick up here as we've got 1 minute on the play clock. I'm just here having a look and a think, and this should be the last lap of the race. I famously got it wrong at Circuit de la Sarthe last year, but I'm going to put my money on it and say that this is the last lap of the race. There's 38 seconds left, and you can't get around this track and the bus stop chicane in that period of time. So we are now in the dying moment of this event, and it is Team Redline GT who are leading the way, and I'm sure Apex Racing Team would have loved to have had 1 more lap in order to do this one. And some of these teams as well might well have been thinking they had to have done another lap, and now are scratching their heads because their play clock is down to 5 seconds. It will expire through NASCAR turn number 4. The white flag is out. The checkered flag will be out in just 1 moment's time. And Team Redline, they are flashing the lights already. It's a 1-2 for Team Redline here in the BMW 120. Max Veneg and Max Benecke punch a ticket to Munich in December, and they are each $1,200 richer after 2 hours worth of racing. Jonas Warmeyer and Gianni Vecchio, they come home in 2nd place, and they win $600 each for their time. And Williams Esports Chill Blast, they hold on to claim 3rd place. Alexander Voss was working here today and was able to get himself that 3rd place with his teammate, of course, who was Lauren Heinrich, who we saw in the car at the start of the race. Williams Esports Chill Blast, $300 richer to boot. Apex Racing Team come home in 4th place. I do just want to have a look at how close it was at the line between these 2 teams, and well, it wasn't actually that close in the end. There's about 2 car lengths between them, which at Daytona, Tyler, might as well be 2 minutes.
0.2 of a second here is like an eternity at other circuits. And one other thing that I noticed here on that, just there towards the end, Williams Esports BenQ is able to get themselves up into 7th ahead of Ronin Simsport. They were pretty much out of fuel there at the line was Ronin Simsport Blue. But what a race we had today. We had a 1-2 here for Team Redline GT. And probably one of the more controversial races that we'll have this year.
Yeah, we're just having a look then at the replay of Ronin Simsport, and you'll just notice, if you pay attention to the rev count which is, just circle it for you right about there. You'll just notice that those revs will start to come down. He's having to clutch it a little bit. No, he's fine through NASCAR turn 4. And there we are. There you can just see the fact that he's blipping and the revs start coming down dramatically, and they lose 7th place at the very, very end of the event. And well, Ronin were in the top 5. They had a shot at 4th place at one point, but they just ran out of fuel. And this is what we talk about in sim racing, just like motorsports. I remember Magnus Racing, they had that great race at Daytona in the Rolex 24 a couple of years ago, when it really did come down to shaking the car around to see how much fuel is left. That's endurance racing.
It certainly is, and especially in an event like this, these teams are not wanting to leave anything on the table. They're not willing to give away any more time that they have to in the pit stop phases. These guys are really trying to get everything down to the millimeter and every last point of a liter that they can on fuel. These guys leave nothing on the table, and some of the time you just make a calculation error.
Let's have a look then through your final race results here from the first BMW 120 of 2020 from Daytona. Team Redline 1-2. The team of Max Venig and Max Benecke win $1,200 per driver, and they punch themselves a ticket to Munich in December for the BMW end of year sim racing event. Team Redline GT2, the number 72 car, did lead for a period after pit stops. They ended up finishing 1.1 second behind their sister car, Johnny Vecchio and Jormas Wallmeyer, $600 richer each. Williams eSports, Chill Blast, Lion Heinrich and Alexander Voss, they come home in 3rd place, and they win $300 each. Apex Racing Team, it was close to the timing screens, but as we showed you, it's about 2 car lengths at the end. Jamie Fluke on the outside looking in when it comes to prize money here today, but they'll be back in the other 5 races of the BMW 120. Racecraft eSports Lockburton, they get a great end to the race, finishing in 5th place. Kane Halliburton was the driver who drove the car over the finish line. BOS Car Sim Sports, you had Josh Rogers starting the race, Mitchell de Jong finishing the race. You had the moment down into the bus stop chicane where Mitchell de Jong got hit from behind, and ever since then, that number 81 car didn't look like it was in terms of pace. They finish in P number 6. Williams eSports BenQ, they had a good race. Arthur Hook coming home at the start finish line in 7th place. Ronin Sim Sports Blue, they ran out of fuel at the start finish line, and Diego Pinto comes home in 8th place for that team. Black Spot Racing in the number 6 car, it was Igor Ogdenikov, and they come home in 9th place with Astro Gaming Altus Esports, Alexander Luritzen bringing that car home in P number 10. 11th place is the other Altus Esports car. That is the one that started the race on the outside of row number 1. But an incident down into that first corner meant that they had to do a recovery drive, and Joshua Anderson brings that car home P11, 32 seconds behind your winner. Bronze 56K, said hello to the tyre barrier down at turn number 1. They had to do some issues at the end of the race. They come home in P number 12, and in fact they were the first team that had to do second team that had to do 2 pit stops after Logitech G Altus Esports. BMW Team CATENG, well, it was a good start to the race for Phillipp Eng, but it looked as though they had some incidents getting the fuel into the car. Nicky Catsburg brings the car home, but that team, well, they could have been looking at a podium based upon their pace after about half an hour's worth of racing. RS competition, they come home in 14th place with Martin Christiansen, and Running Simsport, their second car, rounds out your top 15. Full Send Racing, Team, Los Cangres, Pure Racing Team, and Race for Cat Motorsports round out your top 20. Of course, Pure Racing Team was that number 3 car that had the moment with the BRS kind of Simsports car in the second half of the race down at the bus stop chicane. That team, they were one of the couple of teams that did 2 pit stops in this event. Let's look at the remainder of the results there up on your screen. Radicals Online were a car to note. They did lose about 5 places, making a second splash and dash, but they were your biggest movers in your field here today. The remainder of the results coming up for you now. 50 cars took to the high banks of Daytona and the road course here at the World Center of Racing. We had ourselves a total of 38 complete the race. Of those, 33 finished on the lead lap. 4 drivers finished 1 lap down. 1 driver, HO Engineering, they came home 2 laps behind your winner. And there is a look at the remainder of the results. And well, Sebastian Job, Red Bull Racing Esports, after coming into 2020 on somewhat of a high, they're licking their wounds. And what could have been for them had they have made it past turn number 1 in this event. We've got a couple of drivers that we want to talk to in a couple of moments' time. As Tyler, before we talk to those drivers, it's been a fun race here today.
It really has here from Daytona. This track always seems to excite with its racing, and it certainly delivered here today. It was an action-packed race all the way through, from start to finish, and from the front to the back. We never saw battling let up here from Daytona, and it really came through and impressed just like usual.
Yeah, we have got your race winners. They are ready to talk to us. They are Max Benecke and Max Venig from Team Redline and the number 70 team. And well, Benecke, I'll start with you first because you were in the car first. 2020, you start off with that announcement that you're moving to Team Redline. 1 big race in the books, 1 victory. Explain it to us.
Yeah, hey guys, Happy New Year to you. Yeah, I think the year started pretty well. Couldn't have been better. Very happy about the win, obviously. New team, Team Redline, both cars, P1, P2. Just an amazing result for us, especially because there's also some money involved. I'm happy that BMW puts this off for like a whole season. Yeah, just overall really happy about the team effort. We did good testing. We drove with 2 different setups on the cars because we knew that would be our only chance to put something off, and I think it worked out, and that's why I'm just happy. And Stint was good. Obviously a lot of fuel saving, so people are just trying to get like the last 0.1 liters more when you enter the pits. But obviously it's also about the track position. So towards the end of the stint, like with 10 laps to go, everybody was in the at the limit, and people were starting to just full throttle it again, and that's where the show started, trying to overtake as many people as possible. We had close fights. I had a close fight with basically the top 5 or top 6 all around, which was great. Obviously was sweating a lot, so I'm happy to be here now.
Was the fact that the first stint of the race almost was a fuel strategy game, that play into who was going to be in the car for which stage of the race at all? Did that even factor into your decision making? Because of course the second part of the race would have been far more intensive compared to the first part.
I think that the driver who did the qualifying lap had to do the first stint.
Yes.
So it was pretty much up to just having a good qualifying, being top 5, and then just saving as much fuel as possible. And normally I'm quite good on fuel saving. That's why it was just me doing the first stint. But to be fair, Max Manick had like the same pace as me, so it wouldn't matter at all. It's Daytona, it's a BMW, same setup for us. He's just on the same pace, and we both tested driving the car with older tires, with like double stinting them, so we were both prepared, and it didn't really matter. It was just about keeping the car on track and being fast at the same time for both of us.
Well, Max Vanek, you were the driver that took over at the halfway point of the race, and you brought the car to the start-finish line to win this event. How thankful were you, shall we say, that you and your teammate in the number 72 car were able to pull out a bit of an advantage after that pit stop, and how did that change your approach to the second half of the race?
I mean, I think that's exactly what you want in this position of the race, as all the people might know. I mean, Daytona is basically a lot of luck involved and also strategy. So it's not only about the driver pace. It's more, first of all, saving enough fuel in the first stint and stuff. And we were able to gain a lot of positions in the or towards the end of the first stint. So we went into the pits on P2, and then I got these new double clutches, and they were perfect for pulling away out of the pits. So that was really nice. Getting lucky that Jonas then passed for P2 was also pretty nice, and I think from then on getting the gap and then with your teammate having a gap, I think that's the best thing that could happen to you. I mean, we both know our the fuel consumption of each other, and so we could just change who would be in front and who would save more fuel. So it was pretty easy to calculate the amount of saving that we had to do, and at the same time keeping the pace up, because that's pretty hard. When you are battling while saving fuel, the lap times always drop more than they would with your teammates, so that was pretty nice.
Of course, we know that you worked with Team Redline last year in the Spa 24 Hours, but how different is the dynamic now, having left Pure Racing Team, essentially closed down Pure Racing, to join one of the most longest-standing sim racing teams of all time in Team Redline? Is anything different? Have you had to adapt to anything at all?
I think it's not really adapting or changing. We just like both teams had a pretty similar style of preparing for events, and I think that's why we are such a good matchup. Also, we have a lot of fun while preparing. I think that's very important to keep you motivated, and to keep practicing and doing laps and laps and laps, even though you have nothing or nobody to fight with. So I think it's not really changed in approach-wise, but definitely it feels good to have that kind of different support from a big team with big sponsors, and you can just especially me, I like to just focus on what I like to do and what I think I'm best in doing team-wise. So which is driving and building setups. That's what I do, and I think that improved a lot. So I have now more time for that, and it feels great, to be honest. I couldn't imagine to have a better start into a new year and into a new decade especially. So that's very nice.
Well, you've both punched yourself a ticket to Munich in December. I was going to say, for some of these drivers, they're going to have to travel halfway across the world, but for you, it's only a couple of 100 miles.
Well, for me, it's actually just 20 minutes.
Well, okay, I'll tell you one thing. I think BMW will pay for your travel if it's 20 minutes.
Yeah, I will also take the hotel, so they have to prepare for that.
Yeah. But again, of course, you were at BMW Sim Live about a month ago now. And in terms of the commitment that BMW is bringing, how excited are you to going back to Munich and competing at this end-of-year sim racing event in December?
I think it will be great. I like the event very much. It was the first event from BMW, so they had a lot of stuff to gain experience with, everything new, the sim racing stuff. But they are very committed to it. So we had some good talks with some BMW guys, and you can really feel the passion that you have for sim racing. And I think that's very important, because then you know you have the support from a real big company, and that feels really good. Especially, I mean, already this series with the 6 races with a big prize pool for online races, I think that's great. And then going back into the big final, I hope it will be even better than last time. And I can't wait to compete there and show what we are capable of, since we were a bit unlucky last time, but still it was a great weekend, and looking forward to it.
Well, shout out sponsors. It's a new team, so let's hope you get it right. Who gets it done for you guys?
Yeah, of course. Thanks to our sponsors, obviously Fanatec, SimLab, AK Informatica, and Fuels. Especially also thanks to all the guys in the team putting up some work, social media channels, and some telemetry work as well. And thanks to you guys for broadcasting this, and hopefully see you soon.
Oh, thank you very much. The two Maxes, Max Maneke, Max Venig, starting off a new decade with a bang there. And Tyler, one thing I will say, they seem very happy over at Team Redline.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, what a way to start the year for them, really. Whenever you have a merger like that, it's always kind of a big question mark to is how quickly you're going to adapt. And obviously, they adapted very, very quickly and were able to take a win right off the bat.
And from a team who finished in a prize-paying position to one that was just an itsy-bitsy teeny bit out. That was fourth place. That was the Apex Racing team. They were Kevin Ellis Jr. and Jamie Fluke. Well, we've got Kevin here, and Kevin is so close. 2 car links at the end from taking home some sweet kahuna, but fortunately, you finished P4. How was the day for you here today?
It was a decent start to the race. I think it was a bit tense at the start with a lot of people obviously trying to save as much fuel as possible, and a few guys were a bit more impatient. A few guys wanted to make up spaces around about the halfway point of the first stint, and a lot of us were still trying to save fuel, and I got a bit hairy for a bit. But yeah, we just got down to pit lane. It was literally running out of fuel coming in at the pit box, so I cut it as close as possible there. And then once Jamie got in the car, obviously Sebastian Schmalenbach decided they wanted to ruin the entire event by driving like that. I don't know if he still works with the Redline guys or whatever, but whatever part of his brain told him that was a good idea to race like that was just beyond stupid, because they still had to make a driver swap. So they had to make another pit stop. They weren't even battling for that position, and they just ruined all of our races. So and then to top it all off, he ran into the back of Mitchell. One of the worst moves I've seen in a long time, so shout out to him for whatever the hell that was.
In terms of the incident itself, you're saying that the racing that took place, of course, you weren't in the car at this point. It was Jamie Fluke who had taken over, but you, of course, were observing and helping him out. How much did that level of quote-unquote intense racing hurt you in terms of time and your ability to get a podium?
In terms of the podium, I don't think we didn't have the pace of Coanda and Williams and Redline as well, but I mean, the draft, would definitely have kept us there. But after Sebastian started pulling all that rubbish, then we lost the draft, and it was he damaged the back of Mitchell. I don't know how much Coanda lost in a straight line, but the back of Mitchell's car was ruined. And then at that point, we just had to kind of try and work with Williams and Coanda to catch back up. But all of us still had to save fuel as well, so we lost 2 or 3 seconds with all that, and that was the end of it. So yeah, I mean, we could have had the podium there. I think we were struggling all day with the car. The tires weren't quite where we wanted them to be. So yeah, I'd say we weren't the 4th fastest car, but with the draft and everything, we were in for a chance at more. But obviously Sebastian had other ideas.
Well, the next BMW 120 event will be on March 1st, and that will be at Sebring. Sebring is the track I know that you two are strong at. Are you hoping to at least win some money there, maybe punch your ticket to Munich?
Yeah, definitely. We're feeling a lot more optimistic than we were before we started. We started quite late to start here, so we were not really expecting to be that high up, but we thought it would be decent pace. So we're looking forward to the next races. Obviously, no more draft tracks, so we don't need to deal with that kind of stuff in the future. So that's always refreshing. And yeah, hopefully Jamie and I can carry on the good form and get a few more guys in the team involved as well. Get a few more cars and hopefully have a good bit of fun. Obviously, it's a really exciting prospect that BMW have brought forward here. I don't want to take away from the event at all with obviously what's happened in this race, but a massive thanks to BMW and all that for putting this on. Having the prize money there as well is even better, and of course the trip to Munich is a nice bonus on top of that as well. So it's a great event, great series that we're looking forward to taking part in throughout the year. Just hopefully we don't see too much of what we saw today going forward. Well,
before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you and your team?
So of course, a massive thanks to all the guys at Apex Racing team. We've had a really good winter. The Pro Series is going well for us so far. We're looking forward to the Porsche eSports Super Cup later on this year as well. We're looking forward to that, as well as these future events here. So a massive shout out to all the guys on Apex who help, and of course our sponsors SimPuters and SDK Gaming, and to you guys for the broadcast.
Thank you very much there, Kevin Ellis Jr. For the Apex Racing team, and well, Tyler, one thing I can say, they're not happy.
No, they are certainly not happy with what happened out there today. And really, I don't know of a team that would be happy with what happened out there today. I'm not going to get into it political with everyone, but you can definitely tell that they are not happy. They are quite upset, actually, with how the racing went today.
Well, one team who were able to sneak in to the podium and get themselves some money in this event, that was the number one team, the Williams eSports Chill Blast car. It was Lauren Heinrich who started this race, Alexander Voss who finished it off, and we've got Lauren Heinrich here. Well, Lauren, congratulations, you are now $300 richer, as is your teammate, but what a crazy race you had here today.
Yeah, thanks first of all. Yeah, driving at Daytona is always crazy, especially in sprint races. We knew that you need a portion of luck to win it. We certainly had the pace to win, but it wasn't our day. I went into the pits as the leader, but we had some issues with the driver change. Lost the lead there, and then still nothing was lost, but yeah. Some people wanted to fight for P4, which didn't make much sense. So yeah, P1 and P2 were gone, so we had to be content with P3, but I'm still happy that Alex could finish in P3 ahead of Apex.
You were getting a first-hand seat to the racing that took place in the first half of the second stint. Having a look, of course, helping out your teammate Alexander Voss. Was there anything that you saw which was a little bit too controversial, I think might be the word to say? Was there anything that you think that maybe the driver should have been a little bit easier on?
Yeah, sometimes yes, especially going into turn 1. I closed the door, another driver just was full throttle, didn't care, punted me 2 times in the same corner. Luckily nothing happened, so it's okay, but in these kind of races you need to use your brain to win it and not to win it.
Well, next time out in terms of the BMW 120 is Sebring in March 1st. I assume we're going to see you guys looking to maybe get a couple of steps higher in the podium.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, Sebring, I like the track a lot. We finished quite good in the World Championship there last time. We won the Sebring 12 hours, so all set for a good race.
Well, before I let you go, shout out sponsors, who gets it done for you, and that Williams eSports team, Lauren.
Yeah, shout out to my teammate Alex, of course, then to the Razor team, the BenQ team, but also to our other sponsors, Heusingfeld, Fanatec, Playseat, and yeah, to all the Williams eSports guys.
Well, thank you very much, Lauren Heinrich there, coming home with a podium position. And you can tell, Tyler, there is a difference between finishing 3rd and 4th place and just the tone of voice. That's kind of what $300 will do for you.
Yeah, certainly will. Everyone, whenever you're finishing in 3rd, you're always a little bit more happy than when you're that one spot off of it. Then you're just kind of like, well, really, that had to happen? But yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between someone who has finished in P3 and is very happy about it and someone who's finished out in 4th.
Well, we've got one more team to talk to. That is the Racecraft Engineering team. And, well, they were 5th place overall. It was Brian Lockwood who started the race. Kane Halliburton finished it off. And, Brian, you were there in what I'd like to call a bit of a dozy drive at the first half of the race, where everyone was just wanting to save fuel and get themselves down to the halfway point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that worked out really well for us, let me tell you. The first lap was a little chaotic, and I made a couple mistakes. Didn't push quite as hard as I should have, wanted to keep saving. And we ended up losing the front pack, but we were lucky enough that Ronan got ahead of us and kind of carried us all the way there. So shout out to them, because that put us in a much better position for the last bit than we otherwise would have been. But yeah, Kane did a fantastic job once he got in the car. And, you know, it's a shame that we weren't able to go for that 3rd place, but all things considered, I think 5th is an awesome result.
You were looking at Kane Halliburton in that second part of the race when everything just seemed to get very messy very quickly. Is there any thoughts or reflections on that?
Oh, just happy that Kane got through it okay. Things did get very messy. People were very racy. I think the third Team Redline car was trying to back up the rest of the field, and so things were getting very crazy, as he said. But Kane kept his head cool and kept saving fuel, kept doing what he needed to do, and that put us in the position we needed to be in at the end of the race.
Well, before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you in that Racecraft eSports team?
Yeah, shout out to Marco Nermella, who's on our crew chief for this race, helping out.
Oh, there we are. You're back.
Sorry about that. Shout out to Marco Nermella, who was my crew chief for that race, and he helped out with fuel numbers, what we needed to be doing, and also shout out to Luca Crisafi for the awesome paints. He does all the paints for our team, and these looked really nice. Hopefully got some good airtime. So, and of course everybody else at Racecraft Esports.
Well, thank you very much there. Brian Lockwood coming home in the 5th position here today. Let's just have a look through. So we didn't get the chance to talk to the second Team Redline team, unfortunately. I would have loved to have talked to Koana Sim Sports, but I always say most of the time you see smiley happy Mitchell Dion, but that probably wouldn't have been the case after this one. But Tyler, before we start to wrap things up, final thoughts about what has been a very interesting, very intriguing first big field race of the year on iRacing.
It was a very exciting race, to say the least. It was very controversial all the way through, with several different drivers having separate incidents in this race. And I think that this was a great show to what is going to be a very action-packed season. Not only in the special events, but also in the World Championship seasons once those start up, and I think about mid-March. So it's definitely going to be an incredibly action-packed season all the way through in pretty much every championship there is.
Indeed so. But that is all we've got time for then here. And what's been a great race here. The first BMW 120 of the season. Just a reminder, this is what the drivers have won, $1,200 each for the winning team. That, of course, is Team Redline, Max Benecke, Max Wenig, and entry at the end-of-year sim event at Munich. Going to be great to see them in December in Munich once again. $600 per driver for second place. That is for the Team Redline GT2 car and the Williams eSports Chill Blast car with Lon Heinrich and Alexander Voss, $300 each. But also, we've got 5 more races of the BMW 120 series to go, and the next one will be March the 1st here on Racespot TV and on the iRacing eSports network. And then, of course, we've got races at the Nürburgring, Barcelona, Road Atlanta, and Interlagos still to boot as well. It's been really entertaining here today. Thank you, first of all, to our friends over at BMW for putting this series on. If you like what you saw, use the hashtag BMW Sim, BMW 120. If you're joining us after just completing your BMW 120, let us know how it went as well. I want to say thank you to Jamie Wilson for the fantastic BMW liveries that teams and drivers have been able to download and utilize over the course of these BMW 120 event. And as ever, thank you to Isman Balao, TrackCams22.com, to our friends over at ATVO, and to And One Design, official graphics partner of Racespot TV. Next week, it is all about Daytona. It'll be the 24 hours of Daytona, the first 24-hour race on iRacing in the new decade. And yes, the first broadcasted full 24-hour race in the world this decade. Sorry, 24H eSports. Sorry, 24H series. But you know what? You only had half a race. We'll have a full one. All 24 hours here live on Racespot TV and on the iRacing eSports network. all we have time to say is thank you for watching and goodbye from the World Centre of Racing. For Tyler Maxton, I'm Will Vincent, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.